Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Oldham County Board of Adjustments. It's a little bit after 9 o'clock. My name is Larry Otterback, and we are now in session. We have a women's luncheon later on today, and due to that, we're going to reorder a few of the cases. First off is OC 25007, and then we're going to skip 08 and come back to that one at the end. So we're going 07, and then 010, 011, and then come back up to 08. If you know what your case number is, we're shuffling around. Okay? We're also missing one of the board members. Bill is going to act as the secretary and read the cases for us. The procedures for all the cases are going to be the same. Here in just a second, I'm going to swear staff in. Staff's going to come up to the podium. Bill's going to read the case. Staff is going to give us a staff report. There'll be a round of questioning by board members to staff. And when we're done with that, staff's going to take a seat. I'm going to call you forward, the applicant forward. You need to come up to the lectern, raise your right hand, get sworn in, state your name and address, and justify your project. Anybody talking needs to do so up at the lectern. We're recording things and the mics and all that, so make sure you're up here at the lectern when you're speaking. You're going to come forward, raise your right hand, be sworn in, state your name and address, justify your project. When you're done with that, there'll be a round of questioning by board members to you, the applicant. When we're done with that, you may take a seat. I'm going to call forward anybody that wishes to speak in favor of the application, and then those in opposition to the application. It's the exact same procedure. You're going to come forward, raise your right hand, get sworn in, state your name and address, tell us why you're in favor of the application, round of questioning, you may take a seat. Opposition comes forward, exact same thing. Raise your right hand, state your name and address, be sworn in, round of questioning, and then when opposition is done, you may take a seat. If there is opposition, there'll be time for rebuttal. We're going to start with the applicant first, and then the opposition second on rebuttal, and then we have final statements. Following that, a round of questioning by anybody at the board to anybody in the audience, and then I'm going to close the floor and open it up for general discussion with board members, and we'll call for an up and down motion. Okay. We also have two cases that have been withdrawn. So in case you're here for these cases, know these two have been withdrawn. OC 25006 has been withdrawn, and OC 25009 has been withdrawn. Okay. With that, let's swear staff in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, Bill, if you could read the first one, please. Make sure your mic, real quick, board members, make sure your mic's on. Everybody, make sure your phones are off. If you need to use your phone, excuse yourself from the room. Just make sure it's off when you come back in.
Okay, the first case is docket number OC 25007. It's an application filed requesting a conditional use permit for a private recreation facility and swim club located at 1222 Cliffwood Drive in Goshen.
Okay, Anna.
Good morning, Board. Anna Barge, Senior Planner. Like you just said, this is at 1222 Cliffwood Drive in Goshen. This is in the Harmony Hills subdivision, and they're asking for a conditional use permit for private club use. So an application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit for private recreation and swim club at 1222 Cliffwood Drive in Goshen. The zoning is R2 residential and the parcel is 4.27 acres. So I'm going to go into a little bit of case history. This is all before the current owner bought the property. There has been some code enforcement cases due to nuisances on the property. The first was in 2018, second in 2021, and third in 2022. And I have included photos in this presentation. So basically, the property was vacant for about 10 years, and it's gotten a little bit run down before the current owner purchased the property. So in 2022, there were the following concerns. As you can see, pool gates were open and people were getting inside. It was re-inspected in late March and the property was boarded up, front gate repaired, fencing fixed. One gate was locked and one still unlocked. So there was safety concerns there and just the property was falling apart a little bit. And then re-inspected in mid-April, same thing. The case was able to be closed in September. So in 2024, a case was opened in July with the following concerns. The pool gates were open, so again, safety issue, vegetation overgrowth, and just an overall deterioration of the property. And the health department opened a case because there was untreated, uncirculated water collecting in the pools, creating a potential mosquito breeding site, which nobody wants. So the agenda was posted to the website on February 27th. Adjoining property owner notices were mailed on March 3rd, and public notice appeared in the Oldham Era on March 13th. So this parcel outlined in red is the parcel in question. Like I said, it's in the Harmony Hills subdivision, and it was formerly a swim club before it was kind of vacant and abandoned for a few years. So, like I said, it was formerly a private clubhouse that included pools, tennis courts, and other recreational opportunities, and it's been vacant for about 8 to 10 years, which has caused the property to go into disrepair, resulting in those code enforcement violations mentioned earlier. The applicant just recently bought the property and would like to use it as a private swim club. Because of the R2 zoning in the Oldham County Zoning Ordinance Section 060-040, private clubs and swimming pools are both considered a conditional use. So they can't just do, it's not like permitted by right, like if you wanted to build a house there, that would be permitted by right. So that's why they're here today requesting a conditional use permit to operate a swim club at this location. If approved, they're going to go next to Planning Commission on Tuesday to seek 2 waivers. One of the waivers is to waive the minimum parking requirement due to the restrictions of the existing property. They don't want to add any additional impervious surface. And then the second waiver is the vehicular use buffer landscaping area. It's just to waive the landscaping requirements around the curbing of the property because they want to allow more transparency and support security on the property. So this is just my Google Street View image. And this was taken in November of 2024, as you can probably tell by the leaves on the trees and on the ground. So these were the photos provided by the applicant. As you can see, it's in disrepair, and they would like to be able to improve the property and use it as a swim club, if approved today. So as you can see highlighted there under our R2 zoning conditional uses section, private clubs and swimming pools are both under the recreation portion of conditional uses. So again, for our private or public clubs, including swimming clubs, tennis, and other recreation section, these are the rules under there, including, new buildings have to be set at least 30 feet from the property line, roads and parking shall be of non-dusting all-weather type, and swimming pools should be enclosed by a fence that's at least 6 feet in height prior to use, and they must meet all landscaping requirements. Unless they want to seek a waiver, which is what they're doing. So this is the plan provided today. And you had a big plan provided in your packet, at least you should. If not, I can provide a copy. Yeah, you have that one there. Okay, great. So in summary, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a private club use in R2 zoning on the property located at 1222 Cliffwood Drive in Goshen. So potential conditions of approval, it should only apply to today's March 20th meeting at the Oldham County Board of Adjustments. And secondly, the applicant must obtain appropriate waivers through the Planning Commission, which they've already submitted applications for. Do you have any questions for me?
Okay, thank you. Questions for
Oh, wait, sorry, one more thing. They received 37 letters of support in this from people in the neighborhood and the surrounding areas. And I'm going to submit that to Christy. I just received that today, or I would have made copies and put them in your record, in your
Board
packets.
members, if anybody would like to see that, let me know and we'll pass them around. Questions for Hannah? I do. The packet states that the code violations were 2018, 21, 22. And I'm a little unclear as to what those code enforcement issues were. And then you also, I thought you stated one was also in 2024.
Yeah, I must have had a typo in the packet because it was 2021, and these are the photo. Well, sorry, yeah, 2018. One of them was a typo. I'm blanking on if it was 2022 or
Jay, can
2024.
you switch to the presentation, please, Jay? Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the photos from 2021. Basically, all the code enforcement violations were related to deterioration of the property and safety related to gates being opened and pool access. And then thirdly, the last was with the health department because there was just untreated water in the pool causing mosquitoes to breed. And so that was considered a nuisance from public health perspective.
Okay. So once again, what were the 3 dates or years?
I would have to double check in our records, but it's either 2024 or 2022, and then it's 2021 and 2018.
Got it. Okay.
But we do have our code enforcement officer here.
That's okay right
But
now.
okay,
Thanks.
we're good.
So are structures like the pickleball courts, the basketball courts that are proposed, are those subject to the same setback requirements for new structures?
Ryan, do you? No, they're not
Okay.
required.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the applicant, but while you're
Okay.
up here, this board also deals with minimum parking requirements, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's going to be the planning commission that will deal with the waiver of the parking regulations.
Okay. We've dealt with them before, this board has. So I just double check. You don't need to now, but just,
All right.
I mean, it might be that they need to come back before us or,
No.
So yeah, so I don't know what's been done previously, but so the way the waivers are worded in our ordinance is those are specifically heard by the planning commission. They can hear variances and things that you all hear if it's in conjunction with a preliminary subdivision plan or a zoning map amendment only. So we did send both of their waivers to the planning commission. That'll be heard next month. One thing, and I stepped out, this month, whatever I said. I did step out to speak with the building inspector a second ago, so I don't know if Anna already said this or not, but one of the concerns with the parking waiver, and I'm not sure if this is something that you'll have to factor into your decision to issue them a conditional use permit or not, but one of the uses that they did talk about potentially having would be swim meets. In other neighborhoods where we have private swim clubs, we do have concerns with the residents when large swim meets occur and parking on the street happens. So the applicant is asking for a waiver to be under that minimum amount, which means parking could become a concern if they do have those swim meets. So that is something that we've discussed. We have that problem in other neighborhoods that have these. So
but again,
Yeah.
you're saying that that's under the purview of planning commission.
right.
Not this board.
correct. Yeah, you all are just really issuing them the conditional use permit to have the private swim club. But I do think it's a question maybe to be brought up is if they have those types of events that are then going to exceed their parking, what is their plan for that?
Okay.
So.
All right, thanks. All right, board members, any further questions for Anna?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Anna. And if we can have the applicant come forward, please. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, good morning, members of the board, Ms. Hager, Mr. Combs. In addition to myself, Mike Swansburg with the law firm of Swansburg and Smith, 117 West Main Street here in LaGrange. I have with me this morning Emily Estes, who is the engineer on the project, as well as Beth McBride, who is the owner of the property and the applicant as well here today. They are available as well for purposes of questions. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if now would be the best time to have everyone stand up, be sworn in for that purpose, and we can do that, and we'll move forward.
Great, thank you.
if you want.
Yes.
Raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay.
And if you guys are going to speak, when you do so, just make sure you state your name and address when you come to the lectern, okay? Thanks.
Okay, made sure I got the date right today for March 20th. I've got a bunch of dates in my head. March 20th. So again, good morning. I want to give you a little bit of presentation. In fairness, this is probably going to actually repeat a lot of what Ms. Barge has already stated. She does an excellent job, as always, in terms of putting together a presentation on behalf of the staff. But so there's a lot of what I'm going to say here is going to have already been said, but I think it's important for us to reemphasize those particular points. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So what is Harmony Hills Pool, to the extent that you're not familiar with? As we've already talked about, it is a property that is zoned R2. It's located on what was formerly the Harmony Hills Swim and Racket Club, which first opened its doors in the early 1960s. And that's actually an overhead view of the property. As well, you can see the pool in the back there. Looks like it's got some leaves because there's no water in it because it hasn't been used in a long time. And at one time, the club, as you can see, had an active junior Olympic-sized pool, a clubhouse, and a wading pool. There were some tennis courts there on the property at one time as well, which is off this particular picture. Since that time, and has already been discussed a little bit this morning, the pool and the grounds become overgrown and dilapidated. And at present, none of the old attractions that you might have seen from the 1960s, the pool and the courts, are in use. And since 19 has been the site of nuisance complaints more than a usable space. So at this point, it's become essentially a problem property more than an actual useful property. And that's why we are here today. We want to ask for a conditional use permit so we can make this property useful and vibrant again, just like it was back in the 1960s. So again, officially, what's the ask this morning? The applicants, both Beth and Chris McBride, respectfully ask this board to grant them a conditional use permit to use that former pool property as a private club. What we're really trying to do, if we're going to just break it down to its most simple form, is we're asking this board to give us a conditional use permit so that they can use the property in the way that it was already intended to be used and in fact was contemplated and used for a long time up until probably the last 10, 15 years or so. Ms. Barge already talked about this, but again, as a lawyer, I like to get up here and talk about the standards that you all might have to contemplate when making these decisions. And again, the current zoning designation of R2 contemplates private clubs as a proper conditional use. Ms. Barge has already highlighted it. I've got it hopefully on your screen there. It does indicate private clubs, country clubs, etc. Swimming pools wasn't included in the circle, but that would obviously be included in this particular proposal as well. So it is a proper conditional use for this type of land zoned as R2. And the comprehensive ordinance, right, which governs and it provides a standard here in this county, and particularly section 260-1010, provides that before a conditional use permit is granted, the Board of Adjustment shall find the proposed use to be essential or desirable to the community and not in conflict with the elements of the comprehensive plan. Right? So this is the standard that you all would generally apply before granting a conditional use permit. So let's talk about the comprehensive plan, which is a component part of that analysis. So a couple of highlights for you in terms of the comprehensive plan. Land use objective LU-1-3 sub 1 of the comprehensive plan encourages, quote, development to locate in areas with existing infrastructure and services. And additionally, land use objective LU-2-1 sub 1 encourages, quote, new mixed use development in addition to existing mixed use centers and planned unit developments. So in addition to what you might traditionally think, for example, as let's say mixed development, the biggest one, of course, around here is actually in Jefferson County with a small part that's Norton Commons, right, where you've got a big mixed use development of both recreational and commercial. But what I like to think in this context when we talk about mixed use is having, for example, this club built within a residential area. Right. And so what I consider that to be in some ways a mixed use in terms of it's sitting within a larger property. So existing infrastructure, right? That's one of the component parts or as part of the comprehensive plan. The existing property was built with the neighborhood club model in mind. As you can see on the map right here, and Ms. Barge brought it up earlier, right? This is the property right here in the middle. And it's already built within a neighborhood which was essentially the initial design and what we're trying to accomplish here as well. Combine a pool and tennis courts within the existing subdivision. That's what it was before. That's what we want it to be again. And we're, as I indicated, the McBrides are asking for you all to respectfully provide that conditional use permit so that they can renovate this area so that it falls in line with its original design. So we're not creating anything out of whole cloth here. This is not bulldozing down a bunch of trees, for example, in a forested area to make, a freshly paved shopping center. This is essentially taking what is already there and revitalizing it to essentially make it what it was intended to be before and what it hopes to be again in the future. So you've already seen this image, but I want to bring it back to your attention. This is the proposal. Right. So again, we've got the property before. This is in fact the proposal that the applicant is currently putting forward to you all for consideration. And we'll be talking hopefully next week for the Planning Commission. Don't want to jump ahead, but that would be the intent, assuming that you all do approve that. We would again talk about this in front of the Planning Commission next week. The proposed concept combines a newly renovated, approximately 4,500 square foot clubhouse and swimming pool with a new splash pad, pickleball courts, a basketball court, batting cages that would all become available to club members. And so you can see on here, the wording is not particularly great. I'll point them out for you though. So we've got a clubhouse here in the middle. That's an already existing structure that would be renovated. Over on this side, near where the tennis courts used to be, you would have pickleball courts, a basketball court. I'll talk a little bit more about this here in a second, but of course this is the parking area that is contemplated within the existing property. And then you've got batting cages over here as well. This is a part of a comprehensive idea, a vision that Beth and Chris McBride have for this property that they believe is going to make it successful. I'll just state for the record at this point, this is not intended to be a money generator for them. This is not intended to be a profit generator. They don't actually contemplate that being the case in some way. This is a labor of love for them. This is taking a property that has become dilapidated and making it something that is useful once again. So again, I just want to make sure that everyone understands this is not the intent of this is not to go out and then all of a sudden be a big money generator for the McBrides. They're fully aware of that, and Beth would be more than happy to talk to you about that. Although the applicant, again, hasn't finalized the membership criteria, in case anyone's wondering about that, the expectation, at least at this point, is that membership may be open to all Oldham County residents, right? So in addition to those who are in the neighborhood, it's possible that we might actually expand that. The reality, of course, is start obviously small and then go from there. To the extent that creates some concerns about traffic, et cetera, the applicant, of course, and I'll talk about it here in a minute, the applicant's fully aware of that being a potential issue, but as of this point, what they are contemplating doing is building within the property parking so that it can stay within the property. They don't necessarily anticipate this exploding right now. And then, of course, we'd have to address that at another time if that was going to be the case. But let's talk real quick before I get to that. Let's talk about some of the other issues that I want to bring to your attention about this. One, of course, is that the proposed concept, again, I mentioned before, we're not bulldozing a bunch of trees as part of this particular process. To the extent that that matters to anybody out there, what I want to make sure the public and the board understands too is that the actual intent of this program too is to incorporate the existing tree canopy within the design to the extent possible to minimize the impact on the environment, right? So we get a lot of people that talk about development, a lot of concerns about what's the impact on the environment, are we going to cut down trees, for example? Are we going to decrease that canopy that we've got in any particular area? I want you just to know that that's part of the plan is to try to incorporate the existing canopy as much as possible. I've highlighted in green here the way that the drawing was actually done, which I think is actually really helpful and transparent in many ways, is you can actually see that it's superimposed upon some existing tree areas that are already within the property. And so, like I said, they're actually trying to incorporate those within the design to ensure that they're not cutting down trees as much as possible, right? You don't want it to be a one big flat area that's just one big parking lot, for example, or one big impervious surface that's going to create a whole bunch of collateral environmental issues. They want to make sure that it looks nice in addition to being useful on this front. So I want to bring that to the board's attention. So we talk about parking. And again, the proposed plan would incorporate a new 50-space paved parking lot within the boundaries of the property to encourage members to park on the property and not along the neighborhood streets. So as you can see on the map right now, there's 50 spaces that are contemplated on this. The applicant is prepared to go next week to the Planning Commission to talk about getting a waiver in terms of the minimum parking spaces. But what they're trying to do at the end of the day is two things. One, they want to ensure that they have adequate parking on the property so that people are not parking down along the streets here, for example, and either violating local ordinance or harassing or becoming a nuisance to the neighbors here in the neighborhood, right? That's not the goal of this development. So they want to try to, this will be a paved, meet all the standards that are required under the ordinance for a parking lot with a conditional use of this type. Parking apparatus or design. So they've got 50 spots contemplated within the structure at this point. To the extent anyone is concerned about this, I'll just go ahead and state it out loud. To the extent that at some point there needs to be additional parking, the lot actually does provide for the possibility of expanded parking at some point if that becomes an issue. But the plan at this point is to make it adequate for what they expect to be the turnout in terms of its original design. To the extent that it also matters, the applicants are already fully prepared to discourage members or individuals from parking on the neighborhood by either having the people who are there managing the property at the time turning people away. If they're going to start to park on the street, they can either turn them away, for example, or encourage them to find other means of getting to the property besides parking on that street. So they're already trying to contemplate a way, again, to keep traffic within the property rather than it bleeding out onto the existing property, or the existing surrounding properties, I should say. So before I get into the summary, Ms. Barge did talk about this. Ms. McBride has actually gone around and been very proactive in terms of talking to neighbors about this particular property. And as Ms. Barge had indicated, at this point, she's received 37 letters from neighbors and constituents in that area who support the project, right? And so we want to make sure that we also understand that there has been an active effort to really reach out to the community and talk about this plan. Because again, the McBrides don't want to come in here and put this up and then have it become a big nuisance to the neighborhood or have a lot of opposition to it. They want it to be a place where people enjoy coming. They want it to be a place where the neighborhood is proud to have within its neighborhood environment. And so they've done a really good job, I think, in terms of getting out into the public and actually talking to all the neighbors. Do they have any concerns or questions? Trying to figure out if there were concerns or questions, can that be incorporated in some way? And so this plan ultimately contemplates a lot of that legwork that the McBrides have already put into getting that support for this particular proposal. So again, what's the proposal? What are we asking for at the end of the day? And I appreciate all the time this morning, is that we're respectfully asking that this board grant them a conditional use permit to create a private club on the old property of the Harmony Hills swimming pool, consistent with the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan and the Oldham County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have, but certainly both Ms. Estes and Ms. McBride are available for any questions from their perspective that you all might have at any given time when appropriate. So again, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Sir.
What will constitute the owners in terms of when we need more parking? What's going to make them realize it? Because I'm thinking that if you're going to start off with swimming meets, that increases the number of parking spaces.
Sure.
Because everybody's bringing somebody.
So we actually talked about that. I'm going to let Ms. McBride answer that question
Yeah.
because she's got a vision in her head about how that might work.
If I can get you to state your name and address.
Beth McBride, it's 13615 Rutland Road in Goshen. To answer your question, swim meets is one of those things that is going to come along as the property continues. I run a few different businesses, so it's going to happen in stages. I think swim meets are great. I grew up as a competitive swimmer through high school, so it's a great activity for the children. But you're right, it does bring money into the club. It brings traffic, and I'm hoping that there is enough kids within our membership that can create that. I don't know that we'll ever get as far as being in a LSA league or something like that. But if we do, and I hope there's enough kids to do that, then we would come back to you all or the appropriate board and ask for either more parking on the other side or maybe permits for that particular night if we get that far.
All right, I'm going to break protocol just for a second. Anna, could I get you to come back, please? And Mike, could you go back to the presentation? There's a diagram that, something similar to this, except it's exploded out a little bit larger.
Is it this one, sir?
And Anna, my ask, yeah, that one.
Okay.
And my ask is, of those letters that you got speaking in favor, is there any way that we can get a map similar to this, and then have you highlight which properties are in favor?
I can easily tell you the first three letters on
Well, what I want to do is try to get a map like that and take a highlighter and say, here's all the properties that we have that have written that are in favor, so I can see where all these are. You know, some of these, if they're, not in the neighborhood, or if they're in Louisville, or they don't have standing of this case, that's gonna be something that we need to know about. But if all of these are neighboring properties, and I can see that also tells a different story, so.
I'm going to let her explain where all these properties are, but we literally got that this morning.
No, you
So I haven't been able to review the locations of them, but I will let her speak to the locations within this map of people who have written a letter in.
Then can I get a printout of that map or something that I can highlight as you're calling them off?
We might have to take a recess then, because that
That's
requires
why I
us
said
to
I'm
go to the
breaking protocol
basement. Yeah.
to get this moving while we're asking questions.
Okay. Okay.
So if you want to work on that,
Mr. Chairman, if it would also helpful in the interim while we're talking about that, unless you were going to take a
No,
recess.
that's my question.
What I would like to do is have Ms. McBride come up and at least, because there are numbers on there, and she can talk about at least some of the addresses that she has actually met with on this front and actually gotten support with. So at least that is in the record, if nothing else in the very immediate term,
Okay.
if you're okay with that.
Okay. These letters, from what I can tell, are all from Oldham County and the surrounding neighborhoods. The first few letters on this sheet, Greg and Amy Smith are at 12203, which is right behind the batting cages.
If you have a highlighter, she can just mark it with there.
Jay, can you switch to the screen or presentation, please? Thank you. Yeah, somehow I need to be able to mark
Do you
these
want me
off.
to point to them? Okay.
So
That property right there is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They sit directly behind the batting cages. I talk to him almost daily. He comes to visit me when I'm over at the property. He has a support letter here, and he doesn't mind the batting cages at all. He actually asked me if I could trim the trees so he could watch them. I said, I don't know that that's a great idea, but we'll talk about that in the future. 12201, which is right on the corner. I have their letter right here too. They have 3 small children and couldn't be more supportive of this project. 1219, I have talked to Miss Moulton before. She is in support of the project. I do not have a letter from her. 12207, I do have a letter from them, which is down by the lake that adjoins the property, and I believe that they're here today. So those are the ones that I do know surrounding the property. A lot of them do have the address on the letter. They are within the surrounding community. And there are a handful that are outside the community from, I believe, a lady in maybe River Bluff and Ridgeview.
So those that you have physical letters for is 1219, 1220. Jay, could you go back to the presentation, please? 12201, 12203, and 12207.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Those are the actual letters that you have.
Yes, sir. And I believe there's another one in Cloverdale Court. I don't know if I have a letter for that or not,
Yeah, well,
but he's here.
okay. And then there's a total of 37-ish letters in support, but you also said some of these were not in Harmony Hills. They're in other surrounding areas, but still Oldham County.
Yes, on the outskirts of this neighborhood. Yes, sir.
Okay, how many of those letters that you have are in Harmony Hills?
Well,
Or
there's 3 little subdivisions right there. There's Lakeview Estates, there's Harmony Hills. I don't know that answer, but
Okay.
I can dig through them as we continue to talk.
Well, okay. Okay, I mean, that's, so I guess, Anna, you know, that would be helpful to have something highlighted. And I know you just got these literally this morning, so I totally understand. But it would be helpful to know where these, all the letters are. It would also be helpful, Mike, if you can go to just, and there's several pictures of in your presentation of the actual project, the proposal. Yeah, that's fine. You got several pictures of that, but I can't read that. I can't see that. Do you have that blown up any?
This is technically for
Perfect.
planning commission.
Perfect.
But I brought, this planning commission requires the big ones, and I don't believe.
Okay,
Adjustments requires the big ones.
okay. Can we put this on the overhead? I don't know that would actually fit on the overhead.
Might talking about particular areas if you needed to move it.
Well, no, I want everybody, I want the board to be able to see, because again, we simply can't read that.
I have this in PDF. Would you, and can I go ahead and state my name?
Yes, please do.
My name is Emily Estes with Heritage Engineering, and I'm at 601 North Shore Drive, Suite 100 in Jeffersonville, Indiana, 47130. I'll put in a PDF.
Fantastic. Yeah, that would help. Thank you.
I'm just want to move flash drives in their space. 1 second. Which one is yours? Is it? Yeah. This one? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I forgot to. Here, I'll give it to you.
Oh, perfect. Here we go.
I didn't see which one just popped up. No, that one's mine. Is this one it?
Okay. And we need to go to the BOSA presentation.
Yes, sir.
And I'll just
Submit staff to
run
submit
through
this.
there.
Okay.
We're going to submit it to Christie here in a minute, and you can pass it down. And again, here shortly, we'll have to get the letters of support back. You got the presentation or the PDF?
Yes. And I'm not sure how to make that full screen.
I don't know either.
Yes. Emily Estes with Heritage Engineering, 601 North Shore Drive, Suite 100 in Jeffersonville, Indiana, 47130.
Jay, could you put the presentation on our screens?
And I'm with the engineering firm on this project.
That works. That's perfect. We got it.
Great.
No, we got it. Can you move the thing up a little bit so
Is there-
it's not moving on us? Yeah. No, you can't. Right there. Oh, perfect. Go that way a little bit.
Let's see here. This is the testing on my.
I hear you.
Coming this way?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And you got it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. Let me ask what is the minimum parking requirement and how is that being derived?
Gosh.
Board members, I know you guys aren't seeing this, but
We see that as 68 spaces. It is on this line right here. It's just very hard to see at this level. It should also be in front of you under the parking requirements.
minimum required parking, you're correct. It's
68
showing 68.
spaces.
And you guys are proposing 50.
Yes.
All right, those 50 are not there right now, is that correct? Okay.
There is no striped parking there currently. There
So-
is maybe a broken up impervious surface, and I'm not quite sure what it is.
Do you know how the 68 is determined?
Yes, that is based off of clubhouse square footage and then pool area,
Perfect, okay,
water area.
all right, very good, thank you. So that also dictates the number of people.
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
that's based off of using both at the same time.
Harmony Hills, how old is Harmony Hills?
Well, everything that I see online dates it back to 1960s. Are you talking about the pool, the racket club?
I'm talking about my real question is, why did this place close?
That
And
I'm
when?
not sure. I could not find when it closed, but some historians here might be able to answer that.
The pool was open in the 60s. My mom actually traveled from Pee Valley when she was younger to go to this pool. If you look at the old pictures, this pool was actually developed and built before the neighborhood even had roads. But Miss Oldacre ran it. I believe she bought it from the first developer, and she ran it up until it was about 8 or 10 years ago. She passed away, and her daughters that had it had an emotional attachment to the property and hung on to it for a long time.
But ceased to run it as a...
Correct.
So you answered one of my questions. The pool was built before roads.
Yes.
So here's what I want to make sure isn't happening or didn't happen, is the pool was built before before the roads. Harmony Hills came along, and all of a sudden we have a neighborhood with a swimming facility in it that has increased traffic and increased people, and it's the neighborhood. And I understand we had 37 letters of support of this, right? But it's the neighborhood that said, you know what? This doesn't belong in a residential area now. This was here in the 60s when the residential area wasn't here, the roads weren't here. It was different back in the 60s. Now we have a residential area, and it really is out of place. We have too many neighbors, we have too many people, and this thing's drawing too much, and that's why it's shut down. And that's where I'm going with my questioning, right?
Yeah, I think that's far from
Because I don't want to
what's
approve it
actually
again.
happened. Right.
Just to, all right.
No, I think looking back at it, I really think the neighborhood was built around the pool as an incentive to move out there in a new
And
development.
that's also why I wanted this and all the little highlights of those letters of support. That would tell me, that would answer my question. You understand where my head is? I want to make sure that, okay.
Mr. Chairman, for your benefit and for the member of the board, I'm actually, as I'm going through and everyone is talking, I'm pulling the ones who indicate they live in the neighborhood as well, just so we can, the ones that may live here, I just don't know, but the ones who actually indicate in their letters that they live in the neighborhood, I'm also pulling that out for, at least to differentiate. The ones that I can visibly see are different.
Board members, any other questions? And thanks for bringing this, or whoever did.
As far as frequency of the swim meets that have been discussed, how often do you think those will occur? Are they limited to certain seasons?
Obviously, that would be a summer sport. I don't know that would happen in the first season or two of the pool, just because it's new and running it, and a lot of things will probably be stepped into place. But normally those things are Monday night if you're in an LSA league or something like that. But I'm really hoping that we, have enough kids within the membership that it could be swim meets within the membership, that we don't join any, at least right away, any outside leagues. But I sure hope that it's well loved enough that it could be that, one day if the neighborhood chooses.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about the background on this. So a lot of developers will build a pool and clubhouse type thing and then build the subdivision around it, or a golf course, and then build, homes along the golf course with a pool and a tennis courts, et cetera, around a country club. Is that how this unfolded? So the clubhouse came and then the subdivision built around it? That's one question. And the second question, maybe you can answer that too, is, how did it get along for 30, 40 years with no parking? I mean, I guess the engineer indicated there was some pervious parking there, and perhaps that was a solution, but maybe you can comment on that.
Well, I don't know the actual facts as far as the history of it. I just do know some information from my mom, because she recognized the pool when I told her about it. She grew up in Crestwood and Pee Wee Valley and said that they all traveled to this pool. The only way I can tell is from historical pictures. You can see even the roads aren't the same as they had originally platted them in, I guess, the proposed plan at that time. And I believe it was sold to a second developer that then came in and finished finish the project. It stayed open from what I understand because little old lady ran it with an iron fist, and people came and loved it, and their parents were okay dropping their kids off there. My daughter and I, my son, until I couldn't talk him into it anymore, we went there before it closed. And it was great. And quite frankly, it didn't look much different than it does now. I mean, there was 4-inch cracks in the concrete. You know, you stubbed your toe, you bled, you fixed it, you went back swimming. It was just part of it. But it was so much better than traveling. I live in a nearby neighborhood, and there was never a traffic problem. And to be honest, I don't think I ever saw more than 7 cars in that parking lot when the pool was full on the weekends. Most of it was foot traffic, and that's why I've asked for this. As I said before, I really don't think the looks of a bigger parking lot, blends in with the neighborhood well. But at the same time, if we do need more parking, there is space, and I can come back and ask for that because, as I was told from planning and zoning, that you cannot have on-street parking, period. It's against the violation, and if that was to happen, I would have to cut off anybody from entering, that they would have to be turned away unless it was foot traffic.
Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, if I can, there's another point that we hadn't really talked about, and we discussed about the 1960s version versus what the proposal is today. And one of the things I just want to make sure we highlight is when the property was built back in the 60s and utilized as a pool in the neighborhood, the standards that we currently utilize today and the ones that we're asking and that we have to follow in terms of the ordinances didn't exist at that time. So, some of the pictures you might have seen, it's not on this one, but some of the pictures you might have seen where you've got a dirt driveway in with a circle that goes around it on some of those overheads. At that point, there wasn't a requirement for the parking that we've got now, but that is in fact a requirement now as part of a conditional use for this type of purpose. And so, when we talk about asking for these types of things about parking, for example, and comparatively speaking, what it might have been back in the day versus what it is now, it's because the standards have changed since this pool was originally constructed. And so what we're doing today, of course, is coming here as part of a proposal, and the proposal is put together using the standards that are currently in place here in Oldham County. And so that might be, there's a lot of discussion about what parking might have been, for example, back in the 60s versus now. Back then, you probably just drive on the grass, park there, it's no big deal. But now you're actually required to have the parking lot in place as part of this particular use because that's what the standard is as of today. So just want to make sure we're also talking about the proposal now compared to what it might have been back in the day. A lot of times is incorporating because now we have a different set of rules that we have to follow versus when it was originally constructed. And that's what the applicant and the engineer are proposing to do with this plan is to meet the current standards for this type of property here in Oldham County. And as far as other than simply the reduced number of lots and the reduction of some of the landscaping requirements that we're talking about doing with the Planning Commission next week, everything about this particular proposal meets the current requirements in Oldham County for this type of property coming before you today. So I just want to make sure that was also, it isn't something we really talked about before, but that is the plan as presented today contemplates and incorporates all of the current standards here in Oldham County that are required of this particular type of use. And so we believe, again, it meets that and makes it, from our perspective, an easy decision, at least in that context. Understanding, of course, that there are questions about neighborhood support versus anyone who might be concerned. But I also might invite, if there are individuals out behind us, obviously, who are in the neighborhood and talking, to come up and give their perspective too.
We will.
And I think that might also help all of us understand kind of that perspective, not just the one from the applicant's vantage point. So.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the applicant?
One more. Related to operating hours, is there a certain, are there a set of operating hours you're looking at
Did you need
for
to say
this?
something first? No?
You go ahead.
Okay. I did give a sheet of the operating hours. Was that included?
David, is your mic on?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Print that out with everything else because I have a standard list and I just totally forgot to print that list of operating hours. Oh yeah, that's
Do you
it.
like that smaller?
Oh, yeah, there you go. You got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Those are the hours that I have put in place thus far. I think it is would be acceptable by the community. The clubhouse and the swimming has different hours just because there may be some events at the clubhouse that might go on later. But I think they're good hours and people would appreciate that. And obviously, if neighbors have any issues, I want to be a good neighbor and try to work that out.
Absolutely. Thank you.
What about lighting?
Let's go to the next page. I do have a slide on that. Where's the next one? There we go, lighting. So there is lighting included in this, and she's thought through that as well. So she actually submitted this narrative, and there's lighting at the basketball, pickleball, and batting cages. There will be a sensor light installed that comes on if there's any activity, just for security. And she also notes that it's going to be a fenced-in area, so animals will not be tripping that light in the middle of the night. And then all lighting will follow the ordinance. I just wanted to point out, too, that on this site layout, this has been thoughtfully laid out with a wide entrance. That's a 40-foot aisle coming in and out. That's wider than, a typical 24-foot width where you have, this allows for very nice movement throughout the site. I mean, cars can come in, drop off. I can't see the number on that center island, but that's a nice landscape feature that's going to go in. There's currently one there now, but it will be improved with a wide 24-foot aisle around that, and plus the parallel parking. So I feel like that should be noted, that is beyond a normal parking lot. It's designed for drop-off.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, we need to. Okay.
Ones who may be in the neighborhood but didn't necessarily specify.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, any further questions for the applicant? Okay, I guess, show of hands, and those who wish to speak in favor of the application? Yeah, thanks. Okay, let's go ahead and bring three. We'll bring that gentleman up first. Let's go ahead and get the three of you guys to stand up and get everybody sworn in. And then when you come to the lectern, then all you have to do is state your name and address. Raise your right hands, please.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay.
My name is Ralph Matheson. I live at 11804 Spring Meadow Lane, Goshen. I'm an HOA president of Goshen Hills. I have 109 homes in my subdivision. We are just down the street from this Harmony Lake. I've been president since 2006. Approximately 5 years ago, myself and Goshen City Mayor approached the county to buy this property because we don't have a pool or anything like this on our side of the county. Due to the cost to rehab it, the county denied it. We approached the county denied it. Everything about this project is spot on. Everybody around couldn't be happier that this is going to happen, and I really hope it does. I walk every day. I talk to hundreds of people. I don't know anybody that is against this project. It's everything about it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Ma'am, we'll go to you next.
Some of you people have questions.
Need to speak at the,
Some of you people have questions before.
okay?
This pool was built in the early 60s, mostly due to the city of Goshen, which is the oldest part of the area. And then the subdivisions filtered in after that. My subdivision probably being the next one, and then Lakeview and Lakeview 1, which is right here, were built after that. So that's really why the pool was built. And the kids would ride the bikes or walk. You might see 3 cars parked there. Everybody else walked to the pool. So,
Okay, all right,
all right.
thank you. Yes, ma'am?
My name is Joy Meyer. I live at 12207 Cloverdale Court and one of the residents attaching to the property. I do want to note that even our property being right there attached to it is considered Lakeview Estates. So it might just be a little confusing how that neighborhood is, subdivided. There's a lot of subdivisions within there. So there's a lot of homes. I grew up in that neighborhood. I was a member there. My mother and I share that home now. We were members there back before it closed down. And I assure you it probably closed down just due to the death in the family, the upkeep of the place, and not a negligence on the neighborhood being interested in the property. I remember us walking there. I remember the foot traffic from the community. And I think that we'll be able to get the majority of the memberships just from our own neighborhood to where we're not bringing in, and whatever she needs to do in the future is future planning. But I don't see a massive issue with outside traffic coming in. I see more of a vision of people getting out in our neighborhood and families walking, to the pool in their wagons with their kids, and less issue with vehicle traffic. I think it'll bring more life to our neighborhood. I sit there and I watch that property just deteriorate, and I have my own memories of the laughter and the life and just the community. Our community, it's so huge there, but it's so disconnected anymore the way the world is. And I just think that is exactly what we need there.
Okay.
So,
Stay right there, Joy,
Sure.
if you don't mind, please. Can I have that, please? Is that the map? Joy, could you approach and?
Sure.
Jay, could you switch to the overhead, please? All right, Joy, which one is yours? Before I
right
do
here.
this.
So we have this right on the lake.
All right, if you can, yeah. And then Jay, could you switch to the projector, please? Or overhead?
Yeah, so,
Hang on, Joy, hang on.
Oh, sure.
It just takes a second to get to us. There we go.
yeah.
All right, if you can point to it.
Sure. So, just about over 4 years ago, my mother and I, Jane Ann Meyer, purchased 12207
Okay,
Cloverdale Court.
okay.
Noting that right there, even in that connection, that's considered Lakeview Estates, Settlers Point, Goshen Hill, City of Goshen, just a lot of families, a lot of communities right in that
Okay.
vicinity.
Thank you.
Sure.
How close is this to Harmony Landing?
I'm sorry,
Actually live on Rutland, which is on Harmony Landing, but you would have to take a left out of the pool, take a left on Amanda Way, weasel your way through the neighborhood up to 1793, and then Harmony Landing Country Club is on the opposite side of
Are
1793.
there any parks close to this property?
Creasy Mahan, I guess is kind of close. And that would be the only, and that's a nature preserve. There is a park up there. Is that what you were asking?
I'm just curious about the neighborhood and playgrounds and basketball courts and the things of that nature, and golf and.
There's nothing like that close to my knowledge. I know there's
in
a
Harmony
church
Landing?
off 42 that has a few things, but that would be the closest.
my 12-year-old son could tell you there's not much close. We're really rooting for this.
Thanks, Joy, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
And sir, I believe you were the last. I'll get to you in a minute, ma'am.
No, it's not a lady.
You are also speaking in favor of the application, correct?
Yes.
Okay, state your name and address, please.
Jeff Jacoby.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Jeff.
Jeff?
Jacoby,
All right, Jeff.
12205 Cloverdale Court. I built the house 40 years ago. So I am right next to where Joy was. 12205.
Okay. I know. I caught your finger as soon as
Okay.
it switched.
Or we
can- I just met Beth at the beginning of the meeting. I am right there.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Jeff, thank you.
So I can see the pool from my kitchen window this time of year. Hopefully, I won't see it in the summer.
All right.
Both my daughters learned how to swim at that club. They both worked there as they got older. It's a great area. And Ralph said it, Joy said it. It was a neighborhood. I don't know what you're going to do in the way of advertising for it. I don't want to see all of
You can
Oldham County
speak
come.
to us in the mic, please.
I don't want to see all of Oldham County come there, but it was great for the neighborhood. And truly, during the day, there were just a couple of cars. Everybody walked to it. The kids rode their bikes. It was just perfect for a family neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jeff. All right. I saw others that got sworn in. Are you all wishing to speak in favor of the application or opposed? In favor, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. If you'd like to come forward.
Yes, I'm Paula Gish. I live at 12008 Cloverdale Court, which also, my property doesn't, oh gosh. I'm next to Jeff.
Because they don't know what you're pointing at.
Okay, well, I don't need,
If
I'm on the court, but I don't abut the exact property. I'm
Okay.
on the lake.
Okay.
Oh, you're back here. That's the
Yeah,
lake.
I'm not on the map, that's it.
Okay. That's the lake.
Okay.
Okay. We built our home there in 1979. The swim club was a great place to go to. Raised two boys. It appears it's going to be a lot different than what it was. Not that it was bad. It was a neighborhood pool. I don't think we had 10 cars in the parking lot ever because kids rode their bikes. I walked, carried your own chair. They didn't even provide chairs. I mean, it was low maintenance pool, but it was fun. And your kids grew up there. They had a high board. I can't believe I let my kids jump off of it, but anyway, standards are different now. I appreciate the hours that you put up for the pool. I think that's reasonable. I am concerned about parking a little bit, but I still think it's a neighborhood pool. And I think somebody asked about, do you think all of Oldham County would come to it? They didn't before. It was more just neighborhood, so I don't see it being a big draw for somebody in Crestwood or, you know. One of the things I think that could be added is probably some sort of area for bikes to be parked, like a bike rack would be nice to accommodate that. I am very concerned about swim meets. I think that's a whole different ball game, and I think that would be very tough. My grandson swims and just in neighborhood areas, and they park all over neighborhoods. He goes to Oxmoor, and it's in a neighborhood, and it's not a good thing. And living on the court, I don't really want to see that. So I question the swim meet, but that may be down the road. I did have a question, if I could ask that, have they established a membership cost? Will that include, like if somebody just wanted to shoot baskets or go to the batting cage, do they have to be a full-fledged member of the pool? Or will there be a separate cost for that, or if it's all encompassing? That would be my questions. Also, the lighting, I'm sure if they go by the ordinances that should be appropriate, because obviously living right next to it, that would be a concern, but the hours seem to cover that. So I think it's a good addition. It's certainly 100 times better than what we have now, which is a dilapidated building that has been a danger for kids. Critters live there that we don't want, coyotes, etc. So I think that's all important. I just hope they will consider the parking, and if they could talk about the membership and the cost, I think that would also be comforting to people to know that it's in a reasonable amount for families to join.
Okay, thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we're out of time for the support. If I might ask that the applicant in their closing comments respond to any questions that might have come up.
Well, we'll give the applicant time. We need to do opposition here in a minute. Do you want to extend time for those speaking in favor another 5 minutes?
I think I've heard enough.
Okay, board, anybody else?
Objection.
Okay, we'll close it, I guess just by show of hands then, if we can see those wishing to, that would like to speak in favor. Do you have anything else to state other than what has already been stated? Yes, we're going to get to opposition in just a second. Right now I'm talking about those wishing to speak in favor. Good? All right, show of hands, those who wish to speak in opposition. 2? Okay, let's get you, sir, if you want to come forward. Let's get you sworn in. State your name and address, please.
My name is Dave Likens. I live at 12111 Cloverdale Drive.
1211?
Just across the street, just up the road.
Can you
It's
move the
5
mouse
houses.
to point to it, please?
Well, you're gonna have to get the map out.
Well, the mouse.
The mouse. See if you can.
Dave?
No, I'm not on the screen.
Okay, you're not on screen. 1211.
12111.
12111.
You're right about where the mouse is there?
It's probably, this is Cloverdale here. I'm about right here.
Okay.
He's up the street.
And Dave, what was your last name, please?
Likens, L-Y-K-I-N-S.
Okay, all right, Dave. If you want to tell us what, yes, please.
All right, we moved here in 1984. At the time when we moved in, we had small kids, and the pool was great. The neighborhood was not that very big whatsoever at all. There were still a lot of empty lots. Actually, there was only 2 houses on our street, on our side of the street. So all the neighborhood at that time did join the swim club, and it was great because it was, quote, neighborhood pool. It's not big enough for it to go outside in Oldham County or over into Jefferson County or even 2 miles away. All those neighborhoods are all grown up right now. Now, when we moved here, our kids, of course, they had a great time. It was nice. Mrs. Oldacre and all of them, the family was really nice. They kept hours, which were not very, very late. But then when the neighborhood started getting bigger, we got a lot more cars coming in. People were bringing guests from other counties, dropping their kids off, letting them walk the streets all the time, and it was just a mess around the neighborhood at that time. Now, when Miss Oldacre died, of course, Bean and them who owned the pool took over it, let it elapse for 10 to 12 years, something like that. My concern is that it would be nice to have that pool there for the neighborhood, not anybody outside the neighborhood, not Oldham, all of Oldham County. Now, when she first sent this thing out, there's been 2 advertisements on there for GoFundMe pages for people to help her open up the pool, which she doesn't even have a permit for. So it started making me wonder, what is going on here? They do not let you know exactly what all they're going to do there at that time. She said today that they're opening up to Oldham County, and that's just entirely too much people for that neighborhood. At that time, like I said, it's not a very big thing. And then, as Paula was saying about the swim meets, I've been to swim meets before too. You get hundreds of people coming to those things. There's no place there that's going to allow that much parking for those people to come in. The reason why you said something about, well, why did they have so many people come to the pool at that time? It was all neighborhood people walking up. They were not driving in. The ones that were driving in were just dropping their kids off and letting them run all day.
Okay, thank you. I need you to, did you get sworn in already?
I did.
Okay,
And my name is Brenda Likens, same address, 12111 Cloverdale in Goshen. And we just live from where the pool is. I mean, you can see, we're just right up the street.
And she did not talk to us.
Well, she doesn't have to talk to
I
us.
know.
honey.
No, I'm talking about, she said she
Oh.
surveyed the neighborhood. We never seen them.
Okay, so that, I'm kind of on the fence, so I didn't put my hand up for approved and opposed because I'm kind of both, okay? I think it's a great idea to have something in our neighborhood again, and I would totally be in support of that. It really is a mess out there now, but we've been there, since, like you said, since '84. This pool was always a neighborhood pool. There was never a reason for parking because nobody ever came, never even knew about it, really. It was kind of like a little gym in the woods. You move there, and then there's a pool on the corner for your kids, right? So there was never a reason. But if you make this Oldham County, and the only other pool in Oldham County is John Black, which is out here, and we're down there. It's a lot of Oldham County. Oldham County's grown a lot in the last few years. You don't think many more people are going to be coming, and when there's not parking in your lot, they're going to be parking on the street. The kids are walking up my road. It's not a great road anyway, any of those roads are. So that part scares me, so that's my opposition. I don't really like, and just looking at the hours looked really good except 11:30 on a Sunday night. Why would we stay open that late? The pool was never open at dark. Never open at dark. The only time it was open was if somebody rented the clubhouse for something, a kid's birthday party or graduation, and those were usually done by the time it was getting dusk into the early evening in the summertime. I don't remember it ever being open at nighttime. Okay. Maybe it was, and I just don't remember that. The other thing is her support letter, she has 37. If you include just the very surrounding neighborhoods, we have Lakeview 1 and 2. We have City of Goshen. We have Settlers Point. We have Trails Inn. There's 5 or 6 that have several Harmony, at least 100 to 200 families in each one of those. So you're probably looking at 1,000, 1,200, and you got 37 letters. That tells me something there too. There's some concerns, people who weren't able to show up here today, didn't write letters of support, that they're thinking about, is this the wisest thing for our community when you have that many? And it just in our area, and that's not including, I think one of the letters she mentioned was River Bluff or Covered Bridge or something. That's Oldham County, but it's down from us. So we're bringing people in from out of the county who are signing letters of support, which tells you they're going to have more people in their neighborhood signing letters of support. But it doesn't work for our neighborhood. I think that's about all I wrote. I was just writing down some notes while you were talking. And then I'd wonder too about how this is all going to be paid for and what the price is going to be, because we live in Lakeview too. Our HOA fee is $25 a year. It's not anything. All it does is pay the lights. And I can tell you, because of family members who are actually on the board of our homeowners, there are people in arrears who are paying $25 a year. So where are all these people going to come from unless you open it all of Oldham County? We have several people in Lakeview 2 have not paid their $25 homeowner dues for the last couple of years. Can't pay $20, you're not going to pay to join the pool. You need to make some kind of profit. You are going to go into Oldham County, and we're going to end up in an issue then. And like I said, we're really close to. But do I think we need something? Yes. Do I think it could be neighborhood or much more scaled down? Yes. Just my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, questions for those in opposition?
No.
Okay, anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? All right, time for rebuttal.
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to make this quick. So what I didn't hear really is any opposition per se to the development or use of the property, but there are some collateral concerns that were brought up. I want to make sure I talk about those if possible. So membership, one of the things that come up a couple of times is cost of membership, numbers of members, et cetera. So the market obviously will dictate the number of members. What I think the McBrides have indicated that their intent is to start with the neighborhood. It is a neighborhood pool. They want to start with the neighborhood first. Let's see what that brings in terms of membership, right? Start small to the extent that you need to go out beyond that point to bring in more members, that's fine. But obviously understand that they get to control the membership, and that membership control also means that they can decide, are we having too many members who are bumping us up to concerns about parking, for example, bumping us up to concerns about traffic in the neighborhood? Do we need to scale that down in some way, or do we need to cap it? That's entirely a concern question issue that the applicant can evaluate as it is occurring. But you got to start somewhere, and the logical place to do it is in the neighborhood first. And certainly, to the extent that there are people out there who cannot pay for memberships, I'm sure that there are, and that's unfortunate that that is the case. And there are people in the neighborhood who certainly can, and they may in fact do that. And we already heard a number of people indicating their support for it. And so again, we start about membership. It's got to start small. It's going to start somewhere. But of course, how big it gets in terms of concerns about, does it go out beyond that border? Does it go to the county? Obviously, it'll be dictated by all the concerns that have been raised today in terms of how is it impacting that community. And that's certainly something the McBrides are very aware of and will absolutely keep in mind as that progresses. concern, for example, about traffic. Again, I think that gets back to the membership issue. This is an issue that they've already contemplated. This is an issue that they will continue to look at on a rolling basis. Certainly something I don't think that is realistically, let's be honest, as a practical matter, you're not going to open and on day one, you're going to have 8,000 people show up. They just don't know about it. They don't know about it, but you're going to generate some interest as time goes on. And that's when they're going to have that ability really to look at it and go, hey, where are we at this point and where do we need to be to make sure that, again, we're keeping our neighbors happy and being a good neighbor ourselves. Yeah, actually, there was a concern raised about, or question about bicycle parking. That's actually contemplated in the plan. So, somebody talked about bicycle, but there actually is a built-in bicycle parking within the actual development plan. So that is something that is certainly bicycle 15 spaces of parking. If you've got the plan in front of you or near you, it's actually up there by the at the top of the circle in the parking area, right there by the clubhouse. So we just want to make sure that that was noted as contemplated within the plan as well. Thank you, Anna. Appreciate that. I think that was it in terms of the big picture stuff, Mr. Chairman. At the end of the day, again, appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Rebuttal from opposition? Okay, final statements, no new testimony. Opposition, we'll start with you guys. Any final words? If you're going to speak, you need to come forward, yeah.
Okay. And like my wife said, we're not completely opposed of it as long as they keep it down to where it's just limited to the area that's surrounding that area. Just those 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever communities that are right there. Anywhere outside of Oldham County, down the road, down to 2 miles, 3 miles down the road where they're on the other side of the school, all that community over there, that's too many people to come into that little bitty area right there. And that's the only thing I have to say about that.
Okay, thank you. Final statements?
I'll keep it brief, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, thank you for your time. This is actually a great conversation. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this project and obviously hear concerns and what really illustrates the idea that there is a constituency in this neighborhood who are both excited and may have some concerns. And the McBrides, again, as a practical matter, can't talk to literally every single person within a certain square mileage radius of the property. But to the extent they can, they've tried to do their best to talk to as many as possible. They will continue to do that. From our perspective, of course, what we're asking for is a conditional use permit on a property that is zoned R2. It is an appropriate use. They have otherwise met every other standard that is required for approval by this body. The only issues that they are attempting to remedy that will be asked of the Planning Commission next week, again, are the parking and landscaping matters that we've talked about. But this is essentially a revitalization of an existing structure, an existing pool, an existing clubhouse that's already there, that all they want to do is rebuild to what it used to be and what they hope it will be in the future. And again, we appreciate all of your time and the questions, Mr. Chairman, at this point, and we yield back whatever time we have. Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay. Can I just say one short word? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say to those who were in question about the neighborhood and the memberships, and I want to point out that I was a realtor for 15 years, and I'm currently a real estate investor a lot out of town in Alabama. But I couldn't be more in tune about people concerned about their properties, their property values, people walking by, too much traffic. One reason I did this project, I have grown kids. I have no reason to do this project except I see a need for it, and the property looks horrible, and the kids need this, the community needs this, and I want to be a good neighbor more than anything. So even if it is after today and there's concerns with the neighbor, I'm open. I want to be a good neighbor, and on the other side, as an investor in real estate, I want to help people to protect what they have and they've paid dearly for. So
okay, thank you. All right, board members, questions for anybody?
I'm not sure who to address it to, but do swim meets require some type of special event permit?
Our office does not currently have any sort of special event permit. The police may and I don't know if Tate knows the answer to this or not, but the police may have something for a special event thing, but as far as planning and zoning, we have no permits for anything like that.
Permit would be event. It is an event venue, private club, right? So it kind of encompasses all of that. Would you agree?
Well, I'm going to question. Hang on, Anna. I'm going to ask you something just a second. Well, I'm going to ask the applicant something similar. Okay. So, Anna, any other emails or calls or anything of people in support or opposition?
Those letters were the first thing I've heard.
And only thing.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, first and only.
1960, when this thing opened, 60 is when this thing opened. Did they get an original CUP, and do we still have that?
They did not need one at the time because we didn't have those regulations.
Did they get anything at all? Were there any regulations?
There's no other history in the parcel file that we have.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
This is going to help me greatly. There seem to be some concerns about numbers of people and strangers moving around through the properties. That seems to be the big concern. It's also a concern of mine when we talk about community building. So my concern is this is going to be a private club. So I'm assuming that these kind of things will be a part of what you will be governing on and dealing with as you move forward, if this is approved.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, the question is the concerns of the people, and I see it as being strangers running around through the area. You're talking about communities. So this is going to be basically just for their community, but I can't see you saying you want to serve the community. I know that, but you got to keep the lights on. You're going to have to keep it heated. You're going to have to keep the water in the pools. So if the community doesn't support you, then what's your next alternative?
So if I can answer, and I'll let Ms. McBride follow up if she needs to be. So just to clarify, so this is a membership entity, right? So of course, the only people who are ostensibly allowed on the property would be members. And of course, as we talked about lighting, for example, and security, that is going to be a paramount concern as part of the development, of course. And as you've already heard, the property is already kind of in its current state is a nuisance, right? And so the idea behind this is to develop it in a manner that addresses that, increases the concern. So there will be people, obviously, who are there ensuring that whoever's on the property particularly during working hours, are the only those who are supposed to be there. Just like any other property, theoretically, after hours, they are going to remediate to the extent possible those security and safety concerns. We all know at the end of the day, you can't stop someone from going on a property if they absolutely want to do that. But that is certainly ensuring that the people who are on the property are those who are members and have a reason to be there. Otherwise, is absolutely contemplated as part of the proposal at the end of the day. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know if you wanted to follow up at all. Does that answer your question?
Let me follow up, because would you be acceptable to have no swim meets as a condition of approval?
I don't see
what I would probably say, if I can, Mr. Chairman, I don't know. I don't want to speak necessarily for her, but given my previous conversation, I don't know that I would say no swim meets as a condition at this point. I think what we would probably say at this point is swim meets aren't necessarily contemplated as a thing that's going to happen tomorrow. And certainly anytime you've got a meet or an event of any kind, the applicant, just like any other property owner, is going to have the ability to weigh the event and figure out, one, do I have the capacity to actually do this? Two, is it going to have an adverse impact on my property and those around me, just like any other meet or any other event would at the end of the day? Those are all considerations that would have to be done at the time. To the extent that there are requirements, whether Oldham County Police Department or anyone else might require permits for, if you've got big gatherings of people, all of those would have to be followed no matter what. And that would necessarily contemplate, of course, traffic and pedestrians, for example, and all that increase. So at this point, what I would say is that there's a long-term vision about having this be utilized for meets. I don't know that we would want to say at this point, in order to get approved, we would say we prohibit that, because I think it's something that we would want to work to and make sure that ultimately, if it is something that they want to work toward down the road, that they are looking at all the requirements for it, making sure that it actually makes sense, right? And so it may at that moment not make sense. There may be some things they have to do down the road to make it make more sense. But I just don't know that I would say at this point that it would be, I don't know that we would necessarily agree to a binding element that says no swim meets as a condition of use.
So help me create conditions of approval to limit traffic, to limit people. We've heard, and I understand, the need. I understand it's in a dilapidated, state and revitalization, but we've also heard, I think from opposition, about cars going down all the different streets and number of people and kids running around the neighborhood and et cetera. So how can we set some sort of condition of approval? You talked about capacity. So what is the capacity? What's the capacity number of people, capacity number of cars? Help me figure out how we can set some sort of conditions of approval to address capacity. Ryan.
Okay, so I've got a few conditions of approval to add when we get to that, just based off of things I've heard. I guess one of the things that maybe I would recommend as a condition of approval is that there shall be no on-street parking due to an event at the venue, because then that way, if we get complaints from anybody in the neighborhood, we can put code enforcement on that. We would then have the potential to come back to this board if it gets out of hand because they've had a swim meet and parking becomes a concern. And the thing about parking on the street, it's not just the fact that it's parking on the street, but it's getting emergency service vehicles through there when people park on the roads. It's the mail truck can't pull in because somebody's parked in front of your mailbox. Somebody's parked in front of your driveway. So if we put something in there of there shall be no on-street parking due to events that have occurred at the club, we can then maybe take that to code enforcement and say, listen, there was an event Saturday, it got out of hand, there was cars. We can then go through that process, or potentially, if it gets really out of hand, bring them back to revoke the conditional use permit, which would be subject to an administrative hearing if we choose to go that route.
I'll just note, I just talked to the applicant. We would be agreeable to that as a condition if that helps the process.
Okay.
I also want to answer a little bit of Charles's question, and that's that, and I'm not, in these statements, I'm not wanting you to think that I'm speaking for or against this application, but currently right now the property is abandoned and has been the subject of numerous code enforcement issues of people breaking into the building. So currently right now, the people that are wandering through the neighborhood and coming in there could be anybody. So fixing up the property into the state that they want to is going to be an improvement based off of it is now. I will say I've had several other calls in the office for potential development of this property, all of which would have the same sort of concerns of people leaving that property and going to do whatever. And I don't want to get into specifics of what people have called to inquire about the property for, but trust me, the potential is there no matter what. But currently the state of the property is an issue, and it still has people breaking in and doing all sorts of things inside an abandoned building, and I'll let your mind wander to what that might be. So,
Yeah, I have a question. This is one of the things that I was concerned about. Does this committee have the authority, because this is a swimming club, it's a private swimming club, but it's a swimming club. Do we have the authority we can limit some things, but do we have the authority to say that a swimming club can't have a swimming event? I mean, that's kind of a contradiction to me.
Well, I think given what Ryan just said, I'm perfectly agreeable with what Ryan just said. No on-street parking. I think that eliminates the concern of the events and the concern that I have with the events, which was, given in, I think, opposition, where I can see, you got this 4-acre swim club in a neighborhood and parking everywhere, all up and down the streets.
That was my concern.
Eliminate that and say no on-street parking. And they are in agreement to that. And I think that satisfies all of my concerns.
We have a police department in Goshen.
Sorry, say it again.
Have a police department in Goshen?
Is there a police department in Goshen?
Yeah?
No.
Don't?
I think it's Oldham County Police Department.
We have a sheriff's department.
OCPD, I think, would probably oversee it.
I mean, if there's violations of parking taking place, that's what the police are for.
Sure.
Yeah.
And to write tickets and do that, and that'll clean things up. But it's going to take someone that has the authority to do that, of course. That's the solution to that.
All right, board, questions for anybody else?
So, yeah, I just question for the applicant. I'm not quite sure how to say this. So, I just want to make sure the applicant has the capacity to follow through with what they're proposing here.
Well, it's
You know,
it's up to them.
Yeah, well, I'll just expand my comment here. So having been involved at our country club where we
Careful with any,
yeah, I know, just in terms of the scope here, where we needed to replace our pool, it was over $1 million, $1.5 million. Pool house we're currently building is about $3 million. The John Black pool, I think they finally, after 2 years, wound up spending over $3 million on that. These older pools need tender, loving care and potentially rebuilding. And I just want to make sure that the applicant is going to be able to follow through, because we're talking about some big issues here.
Right. From what I'm hearing, you're talking about big numbers and big money, and do I have the means to pay for that? Do I have the means to pay for all of it? No, I'm going to have to get a loan. Have I already beat down that door? I have. I've beat down that door for 3 years, and every time the owner told me no, she wasn't going to sell the property, I went and bought another property down south as an investment property.
Real quick, just without getting into specifics, I think...
I do have the ability to complete the project.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for anybody? All right, ready to close the floor. Anybody? All right, I'm gonna close the floor, public hearing, open it up for discussion.
The conditional, or the condition on no on-street parking satisfies my concerns.
What's the only condition?
So one of the comments that came out of opposition was that there's no other pools in the area. There is the pool at Paramount. There's a pool at the Harmony Landing Country Club. Pool at Hillcrest. Again, those are all private. But and then of course there's the Oldham County Pool, which is public. And where I'm at, Hunting Creek Country Club, which is just over the line in Jefferson County. So there are other pools in the area. I can see where there's a need in this subdivision or this area for revitalization, and I'm delighted that there's the financial investment to make it happen. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay. Anything else? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve docket number OC 25-007, conditional use permit for Catherine Beth McBride at 1222 Clifton Drive in Goshen. The conditional use permit is for a private club use in R2 zoning on the property located at 1222 Clifton Drive in Goshen. The motion to approve is proposed because it's essential or desirable to the community and not in conflict with elements or objectives of the comprehensive plan. Granting the conditional use permit will allow proper integration into the community of a use specifically named in the zoning regulation. The character and objectives of the proposed use and the potential impacts on the community and its surroundings are appropriate. The community or neighborhood has a need for the proposed use, and there are potential benefits to the community or the neighborhood. The proposed use is compatible with surrounding land uses and general character of the area, including such factors as height, bulk, scale, intensity, traffic, noise, drainage, etc. The proposed use will not impair the integrity of the character of the zone. There are specific restrictions on location and size. There are adequate public facilities available, such as including transportation, sanitation, water, drainage, emergency services, and education. Conditions of the approval are that the conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered on March 20th, 2025, Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant must obtain appropriate waivers through the Planning Commission, and there will be no on-street parking use due to events at the facility.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved. Good luck.
No, I don't have the next one, so. Okay. I'm gonna talk to y'all briefly outside.
That's what we talked about that. That's why we restricted it by the no on-street parking.
That's silly, but that just restricts traffic.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. Bill, you want to read the second one?
Okay.
Guys, if you will, thank you. Thank you, guys.
The next item on the agenda is OC 25-10, application filed requesting a conditional use permit for an owner-occupied short-term rental property at 1724 Riverside Drive in Prospect.
Okay.
Good morning, John Hine, Planner 1 at Oldham County Planning and Development Services. As was just read, this is an application that has been filed requesting a conditional use permit for an owner-occupied short-term rental property permit located at 1724 Riverside Drive in Prospect. The zoning as now is CO1 Conservation District, though the land use is residential. The site history, this dates to before the current owner. In December 28th, 2023, the previous property owners were issued a notice of violation by Oldham County Code Enforcement for operating a short-term rental property without the appropriate permits. Again, before the current property owner. Case history, our agenda was posted to the planning website on February 26th. The adjoining property owner notices were mailed on the 3rd of March, and the public notice appeared in Oldham Air, on the 13th of March. Here's the property as it appears during a flood zone, zoning, and our notes. The applicant is requesting a short-term conditional use permit for a owner-occupied short-term rental property. Section 250-050, item A, states an owner-occupied short-term rental as the owner of record whose primary residence is located on the same lot or immediately adjacent lot of the short-term rental property and includes a person, personal or family trust, limited liability partnerships, or limited liability companies, all of which must consist solely of persons and not a business entity. Sections 250-050, item B1, short-term rental property permitted use and conditional use standards state that the following: in zoning district CO1, conservation district, and owner-occupied short-term rental property owner is required to obtain a conditional use permit by the appropriate Board of Adjustments. Here you can see that highlighted in the ordinances. If granted the conditional use permit, the owner must also comply with the operating requirements and standards as outlined in the STRP regulations, item C, operating requirements and standards. This short-term rental has 3 bedrooms and therefore will have a maximum occupancy of 10 based on section 250050, item A, definitions, which calculates it 2 times the number of bedrooms plus an additional 4 persons. The layout, this floor has no bedrooms. The rental floor has 3 bedrooms, the master and the 2 guest bedrooms. And then the bottom floor is the owner's bedroom, or the main floor, is the owner's bedroom. Short-term rental is required to have 4 parking spaces in compliance with section 250-050, item C, operating requirements and standards, number 12. Parking is determined by the maximum occupancy divided by 2.5. In this case, 10 divided by 2.5 provides that 4. Here's a little close-up of the parking. I believe that the applicant will be able to testify if there's adequate parking there for 4 vehicles. And here's our plat. Potential conditions of approval would be the conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered on March 20th, 2025, Oldham County Board of Adjustments. The applicant shall comply with all regulations concerning short-term rental properties outlined in the Oldham County zoning regulations, section 250-050. Conditional use permit shall be automatically revoked upon transfer and sale of the property, and the applicant shall apply for and be issued a short-term rental property permit license before renting the property out. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Questions? Okay, thanks. If we can have the applicant come forward. Morning.
Morning. I'm Ann.
I'm fine. If I can get you to raise your right hand, state
Sure.
your name and address.
I'm Angela Zachman. My address is 9900 Glen Vista Drive, Prospect.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm Angela Zachman. I'm David Zachman's POA. He is a pilot, and he's actually in the air.
Okay.
I'm here for questions. He did give me a statement I can provide to you about the rental property. He's a somewhat new owner, so he wanted to be sure and get the permit before he rented it. He's only owned it for a year, I think. Do you want me to read the statement, or do you want it?
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Unless you have questions.
Questions for Angela? I'll have a few. Angela, so David is, your power of attorney for David.
Yes.
He's flying right now.
He's in the air.
What's the square footage of this thing? Is this his primary residence?
Yes, it is.
1724?
Yes.
And he is looking to rent this when he's gone. Okay. And talk to me a little bit about pilots and how often they're gone. How often is this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. He's international. Sometimes he could be gone a day and sometimes 10 days. And that's why he has the bedroom downstairs, in case he, runs into some conflict or something with renting.
All right. Kind of a first. All right. Any other questions?
So that is our primary concern, is that the property truly is the primary
Yes.
residence of the owner.
Yes.
And it sounds like that is. I don't remember, the question not for you, but for staff, is there any other limitation in terms of the frequency of short-term rentals or the number of weeks or anything like that?
The ordinances define a short-term rental as less than 30 days, but as
Less
the
than
new
30 days per year, or
no,
at a
30
time?
days at a time
At
to,
a time,
to
okay.
a given renter. But the new ordinance by the state of Kentucky does read that we can't regulate anything posted for less than 30 calendar days a year. So anyone seeking this permit would be likely seeking to advertise for more than 30 calendar days a year, but less than 30 days at a time.
So we can't regulate frequency. It's just anything less than 30 consecutive days is short-term. Anything longer than that is long-term rental.
Yes.
That's,
Okay.
but frequency every
Right.
week.
All right. I was just, because I know there was something that happened, I didn't follow it, something that happened recently in the legislature, and I was trying to get myself up to speed on that. So, yeah, thank you.
Can you confirm that there is adequate on-site parking?
On-site parking, yeah, he
for
has.
four vehicles.
Yeah, he has a 2-car garage, a big driveway, and then he actually owns the lot across the street, which is empty.
So wait a minute. STRPs is more for the intent with the new regulation is more for somebody that's living on the property or adjacent to the, immediately adjacent. And that is such that in the event of parties, they can monitor that property, that short-term rental property. That does not apply here. David is gone, even though this is his permanent residence. He's renting this thing when he's gone. When he's not there, the exact opposite.
Yeah, he has installed a security system that he can see by his phone, on his phone, and he sent me pictures in case you wanted to see them, but he has a full view of the outside of the property, both lots, garage, driveway, the riverside. There's no homes there, but he has a full security system installed. He can see on his phone.
And who's going to take care of the property or an event, should an event break out? If one of his tenants gets in a fight.
Well, just like the rental properties that are already approved down the street, He has friends, he has people there that can, his neighbor actually would do it, the one right next to him, a good friend of his.
All right, any other questions for Angela?
Yes. So in other words, if there's a conflict or something happens on the property, he's relying on a neighbor down the street to come and deal with it.
The one right next door.
Okay.
Who approved
Does
it.
this neighbor have proper paperwork and stuff from him saying that he's able to do this?
Well, I could do it too. I live a mile away, so I could be responsible for it too, but he has several people that could do that. Usually, do you need something in writing from the neighbor? I don't know if other short-term rentals provide that. Down the street.
In the short-term rental application, a responsible party can be named as part of the application process.
Okay, any other questions? All good? Thanks, Angela. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Did we get any letters or emails or anything of either? Board questions for anybody? Ryan, did you have something to say?
So a couple questions y'all have already made. So John did just touch on that the responsible party, which we used to call it, is now considered the manager. That still has to reside within 25 miles if it's not the homeowner on the location. So that person still has to reside within 25 miles. That's part of the short-term rental application. In addition to, in confirming residency, the way our regulation is written is they must provide 2 documents that state that this is their primary residence. We get into this question a lot. It doesn't say which 2 documents. And so I did have him reach out to the applicant and go ahead and fill out that short-term rental because there was some question of residency, permanent primary residency in this location. He did send in a utility bill as well as a pay stub from work, which are 2 valid documents. There is not a license, though. There is not anything like that that would kind of give you an idea of that being the primary residence, but they did provide 2 documents that are in accordance with our regulations on the primary residency, and then a responsible party would be required that's within 25 miles to, like you ask, if there's an incident at the thing, if there's a water leak, if there's whatever, and he can't get to it because he's out of the country. So that would be required as well.
Okay. Stay there. Board, questions for anybody else in the audience? Are you all ready for me to close the floor and open it up for discussion? Okay, I'm going to close the floor, open it up for discussion. So Ryan, the intent, we've changed our regulation to state that for STRPs, the owner, it needs to be owner occupied or immediately adjacent. The intent for that is to handle any event that comes up. That's different than saying a responsible manager is 25 miles away. Our new regulations state you're on site. And the reason for that is in case there's an event.
Right. I think that was part of the intent when we changed them. The other big part of that was that person then had a vested interest in they're going to be coming back to that property as being their primary residence. They obviously don't want to see that torn up, as opposed to what we were finding of outside investment companies coming in from out of state to buy up a property just for the sole use of using it as a short-term rental. That those people at the end of the day, even though they do have an interest in their property, they don't live there. And I think if you live in your house, you want to come back to it.
But that's something else is if I live at a property, and the reason we put these regulations in place is I don't want transient, coming and going every single week or every, a change of a tenant, every day, whatever the case, whatever the case. The fact is I'm gone and I'm trying to rent this thing to make some money while I'm gone. And that is opposite of, no, you're living on the property. This is your primary residence. You're here. You're here when your tenants are here. You're managing the property. So I see this as a direct, not violation, but a direct opposite of what we're trying to achieve with our regulation.
And the reason why I wanted to get up and just mention the residency is because those are the kind of complaints that our office gets after the fact.
Yeah.
If this permit gets approved today, that we then get those complaints of, well, they don't live there, or they're doing this or doing that, and then we have to try to sort those out. Now, obviously, we had one a couple weeks ago that we had the same types of incidents with, but that's why I wanted to bring that up. Is there has been question as to truly being the primary residency. He has provided documents that are in,
I have no question. This is his primary residence. I have no question about that. It's just not there.
Let me ask you this. Why do you have this definition of owner-occupied and non-owner occupied?
There is no non-owner occupied short-term rental.
Right.
Well, it's under the definition of it, so if that's the case,
You would have to ask the guy that wrote it, and he's no longer here.
huh?
You would have to ask the guy that wrote this, and he's no longer here.
Where is the non-owner occupied?
It's right above the yellow.
Oh, right
highlight.
above the one
Yeah.
that's not highlighted.
And then, so if that's not the reason for that is, I agree with you at this point. I'm a little bit confused as to whether this is an owner-occupied.
Oh, I have no question. He's got utility bills that show this is his primary resident. He's got work stubs showing.
He's gone.
Well, the fact is, he doesn't have. It's his primary resident. He's just not there.
No, but the owner-occupied could be a property as long as he's the primary residence is adjacent to the
Right.
actual property being rented.
And I think the non-owner occupied definition is in there because we do still have non-owner occupied short-term rentals that are legal non-conforming uses that have been previously approved. So there are non-owner occupied. So I think that's why that definition has remained in there.
The case we had last week or a couple of weeks ago, same location, all this same Riverside, and was he? You even had a question. Was he the occupied owner?
That was a non-owner occupied. That was one of them that was a legal non-conforming use.
Before we changed the rule?
Correct.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to become a little more familiar with this rule here.
Could we consider conditional use where it can only be rented when either property owner or manager is also present?
We could. My take is, I'm going toward a decline.
And yeah, I'm just thinking
Well,
as far as
if it's within the rule, I think you need to consider it that way and not outside the rule. I'll leave that up to them at this point to decide if this is appropriate under the current rule that has recently been established within the last
An owner-occupied short STRP still requires a conditional use permit,
Yes,
and we can decline that.
yeah, but if it's compliant,
Still requires us to approve it, case by case.
Mark, let me comment on the owner occupied. So my thought is, in terms of owner occupied, the intent was that the people are going to be there most of the time. The owners are going to be there most of the time, and it's not going to be 365 days a year that somebody's going to be short-term renting this thing. A pilot is, their number of hours in the air are limited monthly, so they can only fly so much. They have to be somewhere. Now, if this is his primary residence, our definition of primary residence, there are, for tax purposes, it's 184 days a year for the state of Kentucky. We could refine the regulations somewhat for those purposes, and those are auditable. But, again, I think that the intent is that they're going to be there most of the time, and it's not going to be rented all of the time. And from my perspective, it sounds like he's there, probably at least some of the time, probably most of the time, given that pilots can only fly. I don't remember how many hours a month it is, but it is limited.
But the fact is, when he's renting this, he's not going to be there.
Well, in my mind, the regulations for owner occupied, so how are you going to be there if you're renting it out, you're not going to be there? So where are you going to be? I mean, it's typically people, they go on vacation somewhere, or they rent out their home for Derby and they go someplace else. They're not going to be there. I mean, for all short-term rentals, the owners aren't going to be there.
Almost all of our STRPs are, you have a primary resident, and then, either the basement I'm renting out or another accessory ADU I'm renting out, but I'm on the property and I'm managing that rental.
I guess I don't view them that way. I view them as people are renting out their house while they're gone, and somebody else is around to keep an eye on it. So
I'll point out three things in this regulation if you want to take a look at these in your staff packet. The first one is under definitions in A, and it says the owner occupied host. That is defined as the owner of record of the short-term rental property whose primary residence is located on the same lot or immediately adjacent lot of the short-term rental property. If we flip over to, and the page numbers aren't really viewable on here very well, looks like 9, 8, 7, maybe page 6. There is hold on, let me find it now. I lost it. Okay, maybe that's not the page I was looking for. Okay, very last page of the regulations, it says, the third bullet point down, it says owner-occupied host. Okay, so that owner-occupied host who's claiming that this is their primary residence, and elsewhere in the thing it says a minimum of 6 months per year. So as long as he's here living in that house 6 months out of the year, because when we were creating this regulation, we had a lot of people that said, hey, I go to Florida in the wintertime because I don't like the cold weather.
And that's
I'm here
consistent
6
with
months.
the
So that's consistent. So
tax
right.
regulations as well.
Yeah, so it says the owner-occupied host must provide the proof of primary residence and provide 2 documents to verify that. And then it lists the acceptable documents, which the owner has done. Like I said, I just mention that because we get into those debates when people call and then complain about this, blah, blah, blah. There's never anybody there. That it gets sticky for our office.
I'm not arguing the point whether it's his primary resident. I'm arguing the point that he's not there. All right, we're at a point where ma'am, we're at a point where we've closed the floor and we're up, we have discussion among board members.
I mean, technically, I think the law permits people to rent them out up to 6 months a year if it's their primary residence. If I'm understanding the law and the regulations correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but they need to, for it to be the primary residence for income tax purposes, it's 184 days a year or 6 months a year, basically. And that's consistent with what our regulations are as well.
So let me ask this. One thing we were getting into, which started the change of our regulation, was people from out of state buying property here and renting them out.
Right.
Okay.
Full time, 360, like a hotel.
So if somebody from out of state decides to rent, but they come here 186 days, and they make this their primary resident.
And they're paying Kentucky income taxes.
They are a primary resident, but yet they're on that line. The rest of the time, they're gone, they're away, and they're renting this thing out as an STRP.
And there's a lot of people that go to Florida that do just that.
And is that what we want in this county? Do we want that type of transient? Is the intent of our regulation met with that? I say no. But, I mean, I'm one of 4.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I maybe we need to refine the regulation. I don't know. Yeah.
But my head is toward the county, right? What is the intent? What do we want this county? What's the intent of the regulation for the county?
I mean, my interpretation is that the intent is that someone is there on site to immediately address concerns if they're raised by the tenants.
That's what I'm thinking.
And I don't see that occurring here, which is why if this does get approved, I'd recommend a conditional use that the host is either there or there is a manager on site.
If you set that condition, This is a single, I mean, it's, we can open the floor and ask more questions, but I don't think it's a house. It's a, do they have room, is the intent of this house for the host to live there and a guest? And I think we'll have to open the floor to see if that condition of approval can be met. I'm guessing the answer is no, right? That's why he's gone and renting the house.
My understanding of the 6-month rule is for tax purposes and residence. A lot of people like to live in I have a house in another state that I own, in North Carolina in the mountains, but I don't live there necessarily, and so I don't pay my taxes there. I pay my taxes here. But my friends that have similar situations in like Florida, they go to Florida for 6 months to make sure that or to a state. Mostly it's a state that has better tax rates.
Mm.
For instance, North Carolina has almost no tax rate. Kentucky has a big tax rate on your car if you buy a car here versus buying one in North Carolina. And that's basically that. So owner-occupied would not be owner-occupied, in my opinion, if you're 6 months here and 6 months in another state. But that's me. I just think that we just need a clarification on that rule eventually, which I didn't participate in, but anyway, it's confusing. But my understanding of the reason was, you're right, what you just stated a moment ago about what we were trying to avoid.
Yeah.
And owner-occupied was you had to be in your house. I didn't realize that owner-occupied had to do with renting your own home when you're there anyway, your basement or something. I thought it had to be a property, a second property that was rented or on another lot, but you had to be even adjacent to that lot. We've even argued over a foot difference,
We have.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's...
And I guess my question is the person down the street adequate enough? Does he have the appropriate paperwork to say that he is the person to be in charge? Will he, even he might be out and not be there if something was to go wrong.
While that's true, the regulation does state that you can assign a manager within 25 miles.
Okay, yeah, within 25 miles, okay.
Yeah. But again, I have not been convinced for an approval on this from my perspective. Any other discussion? If not, I'm ready for a motion. Anybody?
Not sure what I'm...
Okay, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to decline docket OC 25010 due to the fact that the resident is not on location at time of rental. He's a pilot, but regardless, he's not there to manage the property per the intent of our regulations. That's my motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's do a roll call motion on this or approval on this. All in favor? I'm in approval of the motion. David, you're in approval of the motion. Charles?
I'm in approval.
You're in approval of the motion.
I'm not.
You're in decline of the motion. The motion carries. It's declined. Okay. Bill, if you want to read the next one, please.
Okay. This is OC, third item on the docket for today is OC 25-011 or 11. An application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit for an owner-occupied short-term rental property located at 6620 Bohannon Lane in LaGrange.
Yeah.
All right. So I've been called in to be the relief pitcher because they had to leave to go to the luncheon. So here I am. So pardon with me, this will be the first time I've seen this presentation, although not the first time I've seen the staff report. So hopefully I can make sense of this. So this is a, same thing as we just heard, conditional use permit for an owner-occupied short-term rental located at 6620 Bohannon Lane. Property is in AG1 zoning. Sits on 5.616 acres. I think the applicant may be prepared to talk about this because I know there was some discrepancy between maybe some people that called about the size of the property, even though I really don't know what that matters for the short-term rental part, but they may be ready to address that comment, the applicant. A little bit of the site history. On April 5th, 2024, Oldham County Code Enforcement issued a notice of violation for the advertising and rental of this short-term rental property without a proper permit, as well as unpermitted upgrades. As we looked at the pictures, there was a lot of work done to a barn to convert some spaces into living space that I think had gone unpermitted. They were directed to contact our office, and they did comply with this directive and have been in contact with the office ever since. In January of this year, a building permit was issued for those upgrades that had been performed. And since then, a certificate of occupancy has been issued for all of those spaces. As far as the case history goes, the agenda was posted to our website back at the end of February. Adjoining property owner notices were mailed out in early March, and the public notice did appear in the Oldham Era on the 13th of March. So this is the property in question on Bohannon Lane. Zoned AG1. So the applicant's requesting a conditional use of this property, and same as we hear in almost all of our conditional use, the definition states what the owner occupied is, and I think we just harped on that a little bit on the last case, so I'm not going to read that verbatim to you. Does require that the conditional use permit is requested from the Board of Adjustments for the owner occupied short-term rental in the agricultural zoning area. If granted the CUP, as with all of our other cases, the applicant does have to comply with all the operating requirements and guidelines that are outlined in our short-term rental regulation. As far as looking at the bedrooms on this, the short-term rental has a total of 5 bedrooms. So there's a main house that they have 3 bedrooms in and 2 in the barn. So the maximum occupancy on that property will be 14 based off of our calculation and our regulations. There's 5 bedrooms. That gives us 10 plus an additional 4. I believe in your staff packet, the applicant does have a document where they agree to no more than 14 occupants on the property. And as well as parking, we take that maximum occupancy, divide that number by 2.5. So they're required to have 6 parking spots on the property. And as you could see from the pictures, pretty big piece of land, a lot of parking area for them to be able to get those cars in there. Here's a couple diagrams. I do think you have these in your staff packet as well, showing the 3 bedrooms in the main house. And then in the barn, there are 2 bedrooms. Picture of the property, once again, a lot of area for parking, big driveway area. So no issues with parking. There wouldn't be any issues with anybody parking on any sort of neighboring property. A lot of land, a lot of parking space there for the occupants. This document just shows you where the AG1, it does require the conditional use permit based on our regulations. And so that proposed short-term rental for the 2 structures on the 1 lot, a maximum occupancy of 14 individuals, and the 6 parking spaces, which they would have to comply with. The potential conditions of approval. This permit shall only apply to the application considered here today at the March 20th, 2025 Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant must comply with all regulations of the short-term rental policy at section 250-050. The conditional use permit shall be automatically revoked upon transfer or sale of the property, and the applicant must apply for and be issued a short-term rental property permit and license before renting the property. I think that's all I've got for you.
Go back to the, right there. Oh, stop. Tate, look at that. And so here is when there is an owner-occupied, a conditional use is required, that second column, and the non-owner occupied when it is not permitted even as a conditional use. So you can see there is a case where a non-owner occupied is permitted in the O1, O2, CN, C1, C2. Those are permitted uses as a non-owner occupied. So a minute ago when we said, here's a couple lines of owner occupied, here's one that has non-owner occupied, it is permitted given the zoning classification. Thank you. All right, any questions for Ryan? Thanks, Ryan.
I will say real quick, and I'll say this just so the applicant can address this, and I know this has been communication between Sandy and the applicant. So once again, there's been some question on residency on this. In your staff packet, Sandy did provide the Secretary of State's page for this business entity, which does show an address of Cambridge Drive in Crestwood. I do know that they were looking at maybe getting that changed to reflect that this is the primary residence. So I'll just bring that up so that hopefully the applicant addresses this, as well as any questions that you all might have revolving around any sort of residency. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
If we can have the applicant come forward, please. Morning.
Good morning.
Let's get you sworn in. Oh, okay. Thank you.
That's okay. My name is Chelsea Bramall. I'm at 401 West Jefferson Street in LaGrange. I represent Quality Real Estate, and the member there is Bob Downs. Uh-oh. Let's see it. Okay, here we go. No, don't do that. That's all right. Which one? Is it that one? Okay. You just saw a map. Mr. Downs, Quality Real Estate has owned this property for now about 15 years. So the backstory on it is it was used as a long-term rental. Okay, very good. A long-term rental. He had regular tenants in there, and at some point there was a lapse. Tenants moved out, and so it was posted on Airbnb without knowledge of the rules. So that's what originated with when it became advised that that was not permitted without the requisite permitting through the county. It was brought down. And then the relocation to the address happened. So then they pivoted and moved out there. So this is an application for both units, the main one being this barn, which now has 2 bedrooms, and that is the request for the permit for that structure. We believe it comes into compliance with all the other regulations. The parking shouldn't be an issue. It's a pretty rural area. Quality Real Estate owns the adjacent tract as well, so there's a good buffer zone to the back, and then there's a huge undeveloped parcel immediately adjacent. So there aren't any structures sort of this direction either. Here are your standards, like you have been advised already today. So the Board of Adjustment shall find the proposed use to be essential or desirable to the community and not in conflict with the elements and objectives of the comprehensive plan. We've got the land use in an A1 is encouraged to preserve wildlife. In this situation, there's not a lot of farming here, but there is some undeveloped land, some kind of woods are in the area. And what is this to preserve that Oldham County's rural character? It also, not to be remiss, but the plan also includes a lot of data about Oldham County tourism. And so for every dollar that the county spends, it gets on average of $440 back. So this is a free and revenue-making way to also promote the tourism in the county. So this is just pulled from the data supporting your comprehensive plan. We think this is a good way to sort of, provide another means of attracting tourists to the area. It's sort of a low risk, low development kind of way to include another option for bringing people in on a small scale with preserving the community and preserving the land. I think that's about all we have. I'll go back to this. I have Mr. Downs here. He can be sworn in and answer any other questions for you.
Do you wish to speak for any reason or just answer questions? Board, do we need to get them sworn in? Do we have any questions for?
I have questions.
Okay, let's go ahead and get you sworn in.
Do have the change of address for the LLC that when that relocation happened. If you all would like to see that, we can tender it as evidence.
Okay.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Name and address.
Robert Downs, 6620 Bohannon Lane, LaGrange, Kentucky, 40031.
Okay. Okay, board, questions for either Chelsea or Robert?
Yeah, Mr. Downs, what is the status of your former 7512 Cambridge Drive address?
Still owned by my wife and I. Just us.
And who is living there right now?
My wife and children.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, so just so I'm clear, we've got the primary resident on 6620 Bohannon Lane. You've got a primary residence and you've got two barns, and you're looking to rent out both barns. Are you looking to rent out the primary resident?
No, only maybe on occasion, as you mentioned, maybe Derby or the Ironman or something like that. This is a situation where got two children in college, would like to make a little extra money on this property. So it's definitely a short-term situation and just on occasion. It's not something that, I know the intent of the regulation, being familiar with real estate and owning properties. The intent, I'm sure, of you all or whoever proposed the regulation was so large out-of-town corporations don't come in, buy these properties, they're off-site, hard to get a hold of, and then that eventually drives up the cost of housing for people that want to live in Oldham County and recreate in Oldham County and work in Oldham County, but this is obviously not a situation. I've lived in Oldham County for 16 years, owned this property for 11 years. So it's definitely not that situation that you all are trying to prevent.
Okay.
I think so.
And when renting the property, you'll be available for any immediate assistance needed by?
Absolutely, yeah. I have two properties that on the rare occasion that maybe the whole property is rented, that I have a property 18 miles away, have a condo 21 miles away in eastern Jefferson County, and then in the extremely rare situation, my son, who's involved in real estate and has his own short-term rentals in Jeffersonville, Indiana, is 21 miles away. So we have a definite plan to address any issues if they ever came up.
So I just want to correct a misunderstanding, something you just said in terms of the intent of the regulations. I think what drove a lot of the change in rules for owner-occupied was that in addition to out-of-state or out-of-country even buyers of properties turning residences into essentially hotels, or Airbnbs, neighbors were objecting to their neighbor, their home next door turning into a party house.
Yeah.
And so it was in addition to having somebody to keep an eye on it, but it was also the changing the character of the neighborhood really to a commercial type of use for a residential property. So that was a big part of it, and that's what we're trying to prevent, is that a home in a residential or agricultural community turns into a party house or turns into a commercial property that's regularly rented all the time. And so the intent is where somebody lives in or near the property, they're able to make sure it doesn't turn into a party house because they'll be there to police that. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
Quality Real Estate is the applicant. Is that correct? Quality?
Yes, that's the owner of
What
the
is-
property.
That's the owner of the property.
Yeah. I'm Robert
Okay.
H. Downs, sole member.
Okay, all right, very, thank you, that answered it. Any other questions?
So you will be living there. So you will be living on site while other people are renting for the
Yes.
short-term rentals. I just confirming that.
And is that included in the number of bedrooms that are being sought out today? Like the number of occupants? Does that basically does that exclude the bedroom you would need to be on site?
I
Which
wasn't
is-
asked to do that, but there's just basically saying what's available. That's what they asked.
So you're asking about 14 people?
Yeah, should it be 12 instead?
So what does the 14 people comprise of? Is that the two barns?
I think it's
Two
just one.
bedrooms in the barn, the ADU, and then 3 in the house.
Okay.
He has a misunderstanding. The barn that you see in the middle is not part of this project. That doesn't
Okay.
have sleeping quarters.
All right,
That's
so just the one
a
barn.
building. Yes.
Okay.
Just the barn. And from my understanding, and he can correct me, I don't think there's any interest in bringing people in and him still being in the main house. So the intention, if that's rented, then he would be off-site, staying in the area or calling in help from an
Okay.
assistant from his son.
No, it's not. So just for clarification, just crystal clear, the intent, this is your primary resident.
Yes.
You've got the barn that you plan on renting out as an STRP. The intent is to rent that barn as an STRP when you're living on the primary resident. There are occasions, Derby, Ironman, you said, those two you picked out, that you might not also be at the primary resident, that you're going to rent, STRP, both houses, living quarters, at which time you're up to 14 people. But even during those times, you just listed yourself as being, you just said that you'll be close by, right? You
Well, I
might
say
be.
I have 2 properties within, I said 18 miles and 19 miles.
So you're still going to be managing these properties when they're rented.
Absolutely.
There are times, and you mentioned, I think, 3 different people within a 25-mile radius, one of which was your son, who you said also has property, and he's 18 miles away. On the rare occasion that I'll be gone, I've at least got, and then you mentioned 3 different property managers that can manage this.
Yeah, I'm 2 of them. My son's the other one who's 21 miles away. Yes, correct.
Okay.
I have a question. Do you have an application in process right now with the Secretary of State to change the address for Quality Real Estate from the Cambridge Drive to the
Yeah.
Do we want to, here, I'll tell you what, if you can put it on the overhead there, just so the rest of the board can see it, and then we'll give it to Christie. Yeah, magically. Jay, there you go.
There it is.
There it is.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant?
Do you monitor the site for security purposes, like video, sound?
Yeah, it's all set up for that, but I'm going to put the sound things, I was kind of waiting to see if I got, obviously approved, but my son has a short-term rental in Jeffersonville, Indiana, in a neighborhood, and, you've got neighbors all around, and he has these sound monitors that, if it goes above a certain decibel, you're alerted right on your phone, and it works great, and he's been doing that for now, 18 months, and I think he's only had one complaint that and I think that was because the battery ran out or some issue with the particular decibel levels.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Opposed to the application? John or Ryan, did we get any letters or correspondence in favor or opposed?
Sandy just told me in passing today, because like I said, I haven't been involved in this case, was that there was just some phone calls addressing residency as well as the surrounding property, the fear that if people come to rent this and hunt, that those people may wander onto other people's property. And I know we've had that in other cases. Once again, they can't do a whole lot to prevent, but to be able to have that in the house rules, to be able to put signs up where the property line actually ends, if that is truly the intent of the applicant to rent this to people that would hunt on the property.
Okay.
Those are the only phone calls, though. There was no written correspondence.
Okay. All right, thank you. Board, there was nobody wishing to speak in favor or opposed to the application. Any questions for anybody else in the audience? I guess, David, was it Robert? I'm sorry. Robert, could you come forward, please? Is it your intent to rent this out as a hunting facility?
No, not at all. The neighbor, the Cornets, I guess if you're looking at it, the right, top left, you see those structures right there. So yeah, David, Doug, and Janet, they called me, and I'm not sure what information they got. If you remember that whole case with this thing out on Rebel Ridge, a hunting thing, and he asked me about a hunting club. And I was like, no, there's no hunting club. There's no.
All right, so it's not your intent. That's not the purpose of this thing.
Absolutely not. There will be no hunting going on.
Okay, thank you. That's all. Board, questions for anybody else?
I had a small question. Would the applicant be opposed to putting up no hunting signs, just so they don't wander off on other people's property?
Right, yeah. If we need, that's right. Speaking to the mic.
Absolutely. There's already a few of those up, but we can put more of those.
Okay, thank you. Board, anything else? Ryan, you got anything?
I just once again want to get on the record to say this, because this causes our office a lot of issues. So in determining residency, okay, and my only thing is I sit over there and I listen to this story. I mean, it's red flags are popping off, like, between it owned in a real estate company's name, the two documents that have been provided in your staff packet, the LG&E bill for service on the property has Robert Downs and Rebecca Downs, 7512 Cambridge Drive. The Stockyards Bank one says a checking account has been opened solely with the address of the Bohannon Lane, but it's just a checking account. It's a letter from the bank. no license, no formal ID, no voting registration card, which once again, our restrictions don't say which two you have to provide, but that right there it throws a lot of red flags. There's multiple properties he's already stated that he owns in the area between him and his son. For all intents and purposes, the only thing I'm getting, and I'm not, once again, it just makes our job in the office, once this gets issued, very difficult when we have questions that get brought up. So I just want to state it on the record again.
What were the two that you got?
Well, the two that are in your packet are an LG&E bill or a verification of service, which is simply LG&E's verifying that there's service on the property, but the name and address on the letter is to Mr. and Mrs. Downs on Cambridge Drive.
All right.
In Crestwood. And then the other one is just simply a letter from Stockyards Bank.
All right, those are the only two that you got.
Those are the only, once again, I haven't handled this case, but those are the two that are in your packet that were provided with the short-term rental application. So I just want to get it on record to state. So when and if this ever comes up, I just want to be, hopefully Christie writes that in there, that I've made this.
So is there anything
concern.
we should do to tighten those regulations?
Well, I mean, there's a lot we could do to change the we could put in there specifically two different documents, but changing any of our regulations are not the easiest process in the world. So,
Guys, I don't, thanks for calling that out. The Stockyard Bank one does have Robert Downs at the address. The other one, the LG&E, you're right. I do not consider that as a proof of residency.
Yeah.
That's proof of starting of a service. That has absolutely nothing to do with a residency.
which is my problem with the utility bills, is because I can own a property, all of my rental properties, those bills may be on that address, but that doesn't prove that I'm living in that house 6 months out of the year. And for us to be able to prove that when and if this ever gets a call on it to say, hey, look, these people don't live in this house. I don't know if they do or not. Right. And I'm not going to go camp out outside for 6 months and, in the woods to see. But it just makes our job very difficult when issues come about. So
Can you make some administrative rules or administrative regulations on which documents, the characterization of the documents that are appropriate?
I mean, I think that's a legal question, because the way it's written in the ordinance that was passed is that it's any of those two.
Okay. Robert, can you come forward again, please? Can you provide any other proof of residency?
Well, I got the water set in my name.
Is it have you showing you as that address?
Yes, Robert Downs. Of course, they don't mail the bills. I mean, you can verify that. I said I need proof of this. If you try to go change your residency with getting those documents, a utility bill is what they ask for, and a water company would satisfy an LG&E. I actually got my concealed carry license changed to 6620 Bohannon Lane. I don't know what else to tell you.
Well, I think that one might, why is it difficult? So I guess, Tate, I'm going to turn to you to help with this. I think the carry license is proof of residency, I think.
Yeah, I think it's used to vote. Like you can.
Driver's license?
No, I don't have that. I don't know if you have any experience with trying to get a driver's license now, but have you all had any experience?
Yes.
Okay, you cannot get an appointment. And the closest ones, walk-ins are welcome. It's like they said, it's 4 to 5 hours. So,
But you do have the concealed carry. Could you show that to us?
Well, it was filed right there, and it hasn't come. I did it like 3 weeks ago.
Are you saying you don't have a driver's license at all?
No, I do have a driver's license.
With this address. With this, you tried to get it changed.
That's right.
Your current license is showing you came.
Yeah, and it's nearly impossible. It's not like it used to be. No, you have to go through.
It's a misdemeanor not to change your license.
You have to go to the Kentucky State Police office.
You have to go and get your registration changed and show them. Otherwise, if you're not living at the address that's on that license, you get stopped, you're going to get cited.
Well, Mr. Forco, you can maybe speak to how easy it is to get a license right now. But
no, I'm not taking personal testimony from board members.
So I have another question. Have you filed your 2024 tax return yet?
No.
You have a passport?
Yes, I have a passport. No, I've actually applied for a passport. Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
It's expired.
I need two valid proof of residency, and I'm not.
Well, it says the bank account, sir, and the, utility bill, which the LG&E clearly says is in the name of Robert Downs. If I have to say, like, the intent of this regulation, again, I'm living on the property. It's not in a neighborhood. There's all these regulations related to it's not going to be a party house. There's no neighborly objection to this property. You can see it's a 30-acre property. This tract that's in the middle of it's 5.5 acres. So I would think that it meets the requirements that y'all set forth in the regulation.
Any other questions for Robert?
Yes, I have a question. So you say you're presently living there now?
Yes, I've lived
How
there.
how often are you there? That may sound like a rhetorical question, but how often are you there?
Pretty regularly. This past month, I've been moving things out there. Yes. And changing the documents.
Did he recently buy this property?
Do what?
Did he recently buy this?
Did you recently buy this property?
No, sir. We've owned it for Quality Real Estate, 6620 Bohannon Lane, the property in question. Quality Real Estate has owned that property since 2011.
Okay. Any other questions for Robert?
No.
Bill, good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you, Robert.
We need to work on tightening
All right.
definition of documents.
Procedurally, I think I was at a point, where I had the board ask questions for anybody in the audience. Is that correct? I'd already gone through, there's nobody here wishing to speak in favor of the application, nobody opposed to the application. Board members, questions for anybody before I close the floor? All right, I'm going to close the floor, open it up for discussion.
I do not think there's sufficient documentation that it is a primary residence because of the conflicting addresses in the LG&E document.
I was all in favor of approving this thing. And then when that came to light, I'm in agreement. I am not convinced, maybe a month from now when he has a driver's license or he has something else that shows proof of residency. Again, I was ready to approve this thing, but
I have a
now I'm
question
not.
for staff. Is it appropriate for us or him to table this until he comes up with better documents?
Well, what?
It's all right to
Okay.
give him an opportunity to change it to satisfy the application, but I'm fine with, putting it on the next docket,
So
table it, or
So we can, do we need to ask the applicant whether we need to proceed with either tabling it or proceed with a vote?
give them the option.
Okay, let's reopen the floor. I need a motion to reopen the floor.
Motion to reopen.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Floor's reopened. And it looks like, if you'd like to come forward, please. It looks like we're either ready to make a motion, which it doesn't sound like would be favorable, or we're ready, if you want to table it, so that we can get better documentation for proof of residency.
Sounds like it might be appropriate. We would be in favor of tabling this for another month or so to get the documentation you've requested.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before I close the floor? Close the floor. Any further discussion among board members? We can go either way. They are open to table it, and I'm in agreement if that's the way we go. Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
Well, wait.
Oh, yep.
If there is no motion if they table it then, or is that a request to table it?
No, it's a request for us to table. It's a motion to
Okay,
table it.
she did request to tabling. Okay, good. All right.
Want to make the motion to table?
I'll make a motion to table.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's been tabled.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you. Okay.
Well, can I just have a brief discussion? So, Ryan, I think it would be helpful just administratively for your office to more clearly define acceptable documents that will make sure there's no misunderstandings by the time it gets to this venue. I mean, I understand the regulations are the regulations, and somebody can certainly come with questionable documents. But just to encourage applicants to kind of grease the skids, if you would, or to make sure things move smoothly, you may want to have some administrative rules in terms of the quality of the documents, is my only comments.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, if you'd like to read the last one, please. Which is,
sorry, that's me. Let's see, this is number 8. Here we go. So this is for docket number OC 25008, a conditional use permit, ADU variance, maximum square footage for William and Donna Bayer at 4005 Briar Ridge Road in LaGrange. Permit, I can read, the application has been filed requesting a maximum square footage variance and conditional permit to approve an existing accessory structure for the use as a detached accessory dwelling unit located at 4005 Briar Ridge in LaGrange.
before you get started,
Yes, sir.
Adam is he lives 2 doors down from me. I don't consider any conflict of interest, and I feel that I can rule fairly with this case. If you guys think differently, I can recuse myself, but I don't think it's a conflict of interest.
Okay, take your word for that.
Good?
Yep, I'm good with it.
All right.
John Hine, Planner 1. As the board has stated, this is a conditional use permit and variance application. Both, they're seeking to convert a already existing accessory structure to a detached accessory dwelling unit with a maximum square footage variance. An application has been proposed for a conditional use, requesting a conditional use permit for a proposed detached accessory dwelling unit and a maximum square footage variance on the property located at 4005 Briar Ridge Road in LaGrange. That is R1 zoning residential, and the lot is 5.1 acres. Site history, 9/11/2002, docket number 3396, a conditional use permit was approved by the Oldham County Board of Adjustments for a home occupation to be conducted out of the existing accessory structure. That motion passed at 5-0. Case history posted to the website February 26th. Adjoining property owner notices mailed the 3rd of March, and it appeared in the Oldham Era on the 13th of March. This is the property in question. R1 zoning. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to convert an existing approved accessory structure to an accessory dwelling unit. According to section 250-040 E subsection 1, detached accessory dwelling units and ADU may only be allowed after the approval of a conditional use permit. The accessory structure was constructed with the previous approval of a conditional use permit for a home occupation issued in 2002. The accessory structure is already on its own approved septic system, and the applicant has stated that the detached ADU will be used for their aging parents. According to section 250-040 E subsection 5, detached accessory dwelling units shall not exceed 25% of the primary structure's square footage. The primary structure is 4,778 square feet according to the PVA, and I apologize for the confusion between your staff packets. I was working with some numbers given to me by the applicant based on an appraisal. When I looked at the PVA documents, I had to make an adjustment. So what I have in my presentation coming up will be the accurate size of the detached unit, and it's a little bit smaller of a variance that he'll be seeking, actually. Based on the primary structure square footage, the maximum allowable size of a detached accessory dwelling unit would be 1,194.5 square feet. The existing structure is 1,369 square feet. In applying to convert the structure to a detached ADU, the applicant is also requesting a maximum square footage variance of 174.5 square feet, or 3.7%. I believe the applicant will be able to testify that these numbers might be, I think I converted the wrong file. I apologize, on my desktop, and I didn't save it onto this desk drive. I believe the structure is around 1,200 square feet, and the variance that he's seeking is only about 103.5 square feet, which would be about 2%. The applicant has stated that the ADU will never be used as a short-term rental property. This is the structure in question on his lot. And here we have the ordinance in R1 zoning and the conditional use regulations revolving detached accessory dwelling units in that zoning. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to allow the use of the already constructed accessory structure as a detached accessory dwelling unit. The applicant is requesting a maximum square footage variance to allow the detached accessory dwelling unit to be greater than 25% of the primary structure's square footage. Primary structure floor area is 4,478 square feet. The maximum allowable floor area for the ADU would then be 1,194.5 square feet. And the existing accessory structure is, I believe, 1,200 and some square feet. And the requested variance is 103 square feet, 103.5 square feet, not the 174.5, excuse me. The conditional use permit and or variance shall only apply to the plan considered at the March 20th, 2025 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. Any questions?
Okay, questions?
One question. Is there a specific offset from the property line for the ADU that's required?
I'm unsure what it is. It's within the, it complies with the setback rule, though, I believe.
Okay.
The applicant could testify, I believe.
Okay. It just looks close in the overhead.
I'll just answer because I brought up the same question, because a detached ADU does have to abide by the setbacks of what would be a primary house. And I asked the same question, and it complies. I think I can't remember if it's 14 feet in that zoning or something of that nature. Might be 7. 7's a common one, and 15 or something's a common one. So, but it does comply. I had the same question.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks. And if we can have the applicant come forward.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And name and address.
My name is William Adam Bear, 4005 Briar Ridge Road, LaGrange, Kentucky.
All right.
So I am here today to request a conditional use permit for the existing structure that's on the property. As John said, in the past, it did have a conditional use permit to be used as a home occupation. We purchased the property about 4 years ago. Prior to that, it was being used as a home office. I know he did have employees, different and interns at different times. He ran two or three different businesses from there, one of them being Flags for Vets and one of them being Scholarly Pursuits. So I just want to let you know that, I'm requesting that the board replace the current CUP to a new CUP within for an accessory dwelling unit. I do believe that the existing CUP being used as a home office and as a business does not fit in with the residentially zoned area, as well as a CUP for an accessory dwelling unit, which does have a residential purpose. I do have a show here, slideshow with several pictures of the property, so you all can get a better understanding of what the neighbors will see, and the size of the property and the look of the property. I also believe John put in your packet, I did go to all of my surrounding neighbors and discussed it with them. I know one of them here's today to talk, Mr. Wilt, and the other three did sign off on that. Is that in their packet? So I have discussed that with all of my neighbors and other people in the neighborhood. Here's a few of the pictures. So as John showed you all, this is the existing structure that's on the property, circled in red. This is a view of the property from my front yard, kind of looking back. This right here would be the main house. This is the accessory dwelling unit, or what I'm hoping to be an accessory dwelling unit for my parents. And this is a garage that's on the property, two-car garage. This is the actual picture of the structure. This would be the front of it, facing Briar Ridge Road. This would be the left-hand side. This would be where I think you had the concern about how far from the property. I think it's about 15 foot off of the property, but this is the actual picture showing how far off the property that it is. This would be a picture from the rear of the property or of the structure. And this is the right-hand side. I'm kind of standing in my side yard of my house looking at the right-hand side of the structure. When it comes to the variance of the square footage, this garage, the structure is actually 1,298 square foot. This is about a 10 by 10 garage that's unfinished. So, I am asking for a variance. When it was built, it's probably 50 to 100 square foot over the size limit. It is all finished on the inside. It does currently have a bathroom, a kitchen, and several other rooms that were used as offices and the family room area. So this is a picture. If you look on the left-hand side, it shows where I was standing in the direction that I'm looking. So the picture on the right is me standing in front of the house looking down the driveway towards Briar Ridge Road, towards my neighbor at 4004 Briar Ridge. This is a picture on the right-hand side property. I am looking towards my neighbor at 4007 Briar Ridge. That house is behind this tree line. This is a picture standing in the rear of the property looking towards Echo Valley Circle to my neighbors on Echo Valley. This is a picture looking to the left of the property towards 4003 Briar Ridge Road. His house is actually way back, kind of behind here, behind my house. This is my house that you see in the picture. This is a picture from the roadway looking up and down both directions, standing in my driveway. This would be looking up the driveway towards the accessory dwelling unit. You can see it way up here. I'm standing at the end of my driveway. This would be in front of 4003 Briar Ridge Road, kind of looking up towards my property. This is my garage right here, and what I'm hoping to be an accessory dwelling unit for my parents is actually behind that. And this is the picture from the neighbor at 4007 looking towards that structure. I just wanted you all to get a good idea of, I don't think that this is going to create an issue for any of my neighbors. Like I said, I've discussed it with them. It's already there. I have no use for a 1,200 square foot home office. We've always planned on being able to take care of our parents when they get older. And when we purchased the property, I didn't know that we couldn't use it for my parents, and I have since found that out. And that's why I'm here today, hoping that you all would pass this. If you all have any questions.
Questions?
No questions.
Adam, we got you. So the home occupation, you are asking to revoke that?
Well, replace it. I guess revoke it, take that one away. I have no need for that conditional
That might be
use
a
permit.
procedural question. Revoke. So we would go for, well, what do you want? I would suggest 3 motions, one to revoke, and then the other 2 that he's asking for.
Yeah, I mean, and since I've been here, we haven't had, anything where we have revoked anything. So I'm guessing, I don't know if Tate can answer this as far as, legally of how the clerk's office gets notified that conditional use permit that's got a certificate of land use restriction is now removed.
Can you have a home occupation in an ADU? Because if we don't revoke it, that's what he's going to have. You don't want the home occupation, right?
I just feel that, I don't need it. And I feel like if you all are willing to, if I can get the accessory dwelling unit CUP, that it will I have no need for the other one. I mean, I understand the neighbors, in the past, they did, come and they didn't want the home office there. So that is something I know that they fought. So from talking to the neighbors, the three things that I did put on there, and I told them that I would have that one taken off. So that's, if it can be done, take it off.
Okay.
The other two was that I assured them that it will never be used as a short-term rental. That's definitely a condition of approval. And there will be no modifications made to increase the square footage of living space. Originally, I was going to tell them that I wouldn't make any modification, but I do plan on putting a deck on the back of it, and that would be considered a modification. But there will be no increase in size or square footage of living space on the structure.
You sure you don't want a short-term rental?
It will not be used as a short-term rental. That's
got a
that's
perfect place
one thing that I assured everyone. And one other question did come up. Actually, two other questions. One of them, the neighbors asked about it, the property ever being split. I can assure that that's not going to happen. These two houses are tied in with the same utilities. And the other question, one question did come up with traffic. Currently, there's me and my wife, and we have 3 grown children. All of us drive. I actually think that the traffic will be less being used by my parents than when it was used as an office with people coming and going. So, thank you.
So Adam, the two conditions of approval, no modifications to the square footage, and then no STRP.
Correct.
All right, any other questions for Adam?
No, but I see no problem with him wanting to, release the CUP that's been approved. He would just come into you all and do it anyway, wouldn't he, on a normal basis?
Yeah, and I think that's probably the cleanest way to do it is if you make a motion that gets, released or revoked or whatever language we use, and then I'll go over and talk to the clerk's office and figure out our process for that. And
The ones we've always done have been just to revoke for non-compliance. But
So,
he wants to change his current status, procedure, and I see no problem with that.
well, luckily our county clerk is familiar with all of our stuff, so I'll go over and see Miss Alvey if you all decide to pass this.
Laura said aye. All right, any other questions for Adam? Thanks, Adam. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the application? Yes, sir. John, you might, I don't know if we can adjust the mic or.
Great, thank you very much.
Let's get you sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Name and address.
My address, my name is Keith Wiltz. My wife Shirley lives there. 4004 Briar Ridge Road,
Okay.
LaGrange, Kentucky, 403031.
Okay.
We live right across the side driveway from Adam, and we've lived there about 30 some years, and as many people in Oldham County think where they live is a special place, and we feel that about where we live as well. And we were really pleased that Adam and Dana were so outcoming to give us information about what they were planning and listen to what we said. We were concerned about the traffic and the noise and those types of things, but I feel we support their plan to do that, and so we appreciate the opportunity to voice our support for his. And you run a real meeting, Commissioner Ardenbeck, so thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any questions for Keith?
No questions.
Thank you. Okay. Any letters or other correspondence of support or opposition?
Only what was provided in your staff packet. He surveyed other neighbors, and they all had no comment or agreed to allow it.
Okay. All right. Seeing nobody else here, board questions for anybody?
No questions.
Ready for me to close the floor? Okay, close the floor. Open it up for discussion. Regarding the revocation, I think we should do that.
Agreed.
And then he had suggested, in addition to the conditions of approval, 2 more. No modification to the increase of square footage and no STRP.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Just to make sure we get the correct square footage in the minutes.
Okay. All right. All right, let's do the revocation first, and then we'll do the CUP second, and then the variance for the square footage third. So if I can get start the motions.
Make a motion that we do the revocation
Of the home occupation.
of the home occupation.
Thank you. Charles, any,
Second.
thank you. Bill, discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, next. Be the CUP.
Should I do it? Motion to approve the conditional use permit ADU for OC 25-008. It's proposed because the proposed use is desirable to the community and not in conflict with the elements, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. Based on the character and objectives of the proposed use and the potential impact on the community and its surroundings and structures, the proposed use is compatible with surrounding land uses and the general character of the area, including such factors as height, bulk, scale, intensity, traffic, noise, odor, drainage, dust, lighting, and appearance. The proposed use will not impair the integrity and character of the zone if there are specific restrictions on location, size, extent, and character, and there are adequate public facilities available such as transportation, sanitation, water, drainage, sewage, emergency services, education, and recreation. Potential conditions of approval are that the conditional use permit shall apply only to the application considered at the March 20th, 2025 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. And number 2, the accessory dwelling unit shall not be used as a short-term rental.
And the other 2 that we just spoke about? No modification to the increased square footage?
Yeah, no modifications to the increased square footage other than the patio at the back. He was going to do it.
Then STRP.
And I've already said no STRP.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That one's been approved.
Okay,
And
motion to approve OC 25008, the variance for the maximum square footage for the 174.5 square feet.
hang on, that was incorrect, right?
Yeah.
It's 103 variance?
Yeah.
103 is the.
103 square feet
Yeah.
variance. The requested variance arises, the potential conditions for approval are that the variance shall only apply to the application considered at the March 20th, 2025 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. I guess second. Thank you, David. Discussion.
We got it all.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All 3 have been approved. Okay. Thank you. Meeting minutes last month, or 2 weeks ago. Any changes?
I was absent, so somebody else should make the motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as provided.
Charles, you want to second that?
I second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That's been approved. Anything else?
Just real quick, yesterday was the filing deadline, so we do have cases for next month, whatever date that's on. But, same time, same place, third Thursday of every month. And just real quick, want to wish Charles a happy 75th birthday. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the age or not, but just want to say happy birthday and thank him for being here today, and he can go celebrate now.
Happy birthday.
I would
birthday.
sing to you, but you don't want that.
Yeah, right.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Meeting adjourned.
This short term.